The Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by the Aiden Forecast, an investment newsletter with weekly updates of leading market indicators and a monthly deep dive into what the details of the economy and the markets mean for investors and retirees. On the web at aidenmarkets.com.
Wines have some of the highest pesticide levels in our food chain. This hour brought to you by ecowine.com. Pesticide-free wines, organic wines, imported from France by the Organic Wine Company, ecowine.com.
Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by Super Beets. Super Beets are sourced from non-GMO beets, and they're packed with dietary nitrates, helping to produce nitric oxide for more energy, stamina, and support for healthy blood pressure levels naturally. For more information, call 800-223-8242
or visit tomsbeets.com. Fund drive, membership drive, both, all of the above. There's only 2 days left. Well, 3 days left, I guess. Today is Wednesday, and then Thursday and Friday. So yesterday we had a great day. The matching grants, so many of you stepped up and said, yes, I'd love to see my gift doubled. That we hit our $15,000 goal, and it got matched. And so now we're only, for the 3-week period, the whole 3-week period, we're only about $10,000 or $15,000 down, but we only have 3 days left, and we have to hit $10,000 each one of those 3 days, plus, make up what little is left over from yesterday's really good day. So please don't stop. We don't have the matching grants anymore, but still, it's really important. If you haven't yet called Free Speech TV to join, to participate, we need to hit these levels, or the network starts to flounder. It's just that simple. And if we can hit these goals, in fact, if we can beat these goals, which has always been my goal, and we've done it in previous years. This year is a tough one. I'm guessing a lot of people are contributing to political campaigns. We saw the same thing in the one fund drive just before the last, the elections in 2016. But Free Speech TV is important too. And in fact, Free Speech TV is supporting the campaigns, indirectly by telling the truth on the air about what's going on, indirectly supporting the campaigns of, progressive candidates all across the country. So please consider a contribution to Free Speech TV now if you haven't already. 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. Tip of the hat to Mark B. from San Jose yesterday, who made a $1,000 gift. Free Speech, a number of people who've made the $1,000 gifts, which is where, come to Portland and I'll take you to lunch, have said, rather than flying to Portland and going through all the expense and hassle of that, and, for an hour and a half with Thom, half hour in the studio and an hour of lunch, I'd rather just talk to him on the phone. And so Free Speech has said, okay, cool, you can have a half hour with Thom on the phone. And I did that with 2 of our $1,000 donors yesterday who preferred to talk to me on the phone instead of coming here. And it had some fascinating conversations. And I actually, one of our donors who wanted to have a phone conversation with me is like really deep in the whole thing with what's going on with vaccines and the peanut oil that they're adding to vaccines, or that they're using to somehow stimulate the immune system. And it appears that this is causing the epidemic of peanut allergies in the United States. They're using sesame oil in Israel, and now they're getting sesame allergies in Israel. It's real interesting stuff. So I got to dig into that. But in any case, I learned from these. They're great. So that's an option on those. But with a $30 gift, you get your choice of the Free Speech TV blue logo bumper sticker with the website and the logo, or the black "This Is Not Normal" bumper sticker, or the "Elect a Clown, Expect a Circus" bumper sticker, or the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker with a $30 gift. With the $60 gift, which could be $5 a month for a year, you get a lapel pin that says "Love Conquers Hate" by the Human Rights Campaign, the Free Speech TV blue grocery bag, and the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. With a $72 gift, you get all 4 of those bumper stickers that I mentioned. The Free Speech TV logo, "This Is Not Normal," "Elect a Clown, Expect a Circus," and Thom Hartmann University. With a $120 gift, which could be $10 a month for a year, you get my book, Unequal Protection, autographed by the author. And you get an autographed photo that Louise took of me when we were in Havana, Cuba, or Cuba, I guess, is how it's correctly. In any case, in Cuba last month with Code Pink. That was a wonderful trip, by the way, and I met some really, really great people that I hope to keep in touch with and hope to see on future trips. With a $240 gift, you get the Free Speech TV T-shirt. That's small, medium, large, or extra large. It says "Building a Just World" on the front and "Standing in Unity" on the back. You get the Free Speech with this freespeechtv.org print on the back. You get the Love Conquers Hate lapel pin from the Human Rights Campaign. You get an autographed copy of my book on equal protection, and you get Bonnie Siegler's book, Signs of Resistance, A Visual History of Protest in America. With a $360 gift, you also get the photo of me in Cuba, autographed. You get my autographed book on equal protection. You get the book by Patrice Kahn-Kuhlers, When They Call You a Terrorist, Lives of Black Lives Matters. You get the book by Bonnie Siegler, Signs of Resistance, A Visual History of Protest in America. You get a one-year subscription to our podcasts, and our podcasts are great. You can listen to the show anytime, anywhere, commercial, and there's no, we take all the commercials and everything. You get 4 bumper stickers, all 4 bumper stickers. With a $480 gift, you get our DVD of me in Cuba, my book on equal protection, When They Call You a Terrorist book, Signs of Resistance book, and the Free Speech TV T-shirt. And with $1,000, as I mentioned, come to Portland and I'll hang out with you for a bit of the afternoon, or we can have a nice telephone conversation. Those are the goodies, but the really important thing is we need to hit at least $10,000 for today. Yesterday was the first day we've done that in a big way, I think, in this fund drive. And so please call now. We need your help. We need to keep this network going. Free Speech TV is a vital part of the American media landscape.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Greetings, my friends, patriots, lovers of democracy, truth, and justice, believers in peace, freedom, and the American way. Thom Hartmann here with you, and it is the first hour of our program on Wednesday, so it's time for our hour-long Middays with Mark, where Congressman Mark Pocan, representing the 2nd District of Wisconsin, the co-chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, the largest caucus in the Democratic Party. Pocan.house.gov is his website. You can tweet him at Rep. Mark Pocan, M-A-R-K-P-O-C-A-N, Rep as in representative, at Rep. Mark Pocan. And Congressman, welcome back.
Thanks, Tom. Glad to be here.
Always great having you with us. You're back in the district, so we don't have video of you, but it's great to hear your voice. So a lot going on right now in the news. I'm not sure exactly what you'd want to put at the top of this, but the town hall thing seems like a big one. The young people from Parkland and the movement that they have inspired. David Hogg, I guess, is the one who was leading the charge on this tweet of calling for members of Congress to be doing town halls. I don't think any Republicans, I haven't heard of a single Republican doing a town hall in months, but I'm guessing you're doing a lot of them.
Yeah, in fact, we saw the tweet that David put out, and we already had in the works 4 town halls, and we're maybe working on a surprise one that might be in a neighboring district as well, that we're not quite finalized on yet. But we have 4 that we're doing in my district. We had one last night, and this is like the most basic part of your job. My job is to take the views of South Central Wisconsin to Washington, D.C., and then to explain Washington, D.C. to South Central Wisconsin. And if you ignore the people that elect you by not having public town halls, you're not really doing your job. So, we've got 4 of them lined up for the next 2 weeks. Last night got a good variety of people. It was actually our biggest turnout ever we've had in Rock County, which happens to be the county that I share with Paul Ryan. And we had a few people who disagreed with us on a couple issues, but for the most part, a lot of people very, very concerned about the direction of the country under this president and this Congress.
Yeah, amen. By the way, the whole point of Middays with Mark is for people to call in and ask you whatever they would like, and our telephone number 202-808-9925 if you would like to speak with Congressman Mark Pocan. The Australian government back in 1996, after the Port Arthur massacre on April 28th of 96. This is from an Australian newspaper. Quote, banned automatic and semi-automatic firearms, adopted new licensing requirements. This is sort of my driver's license thing. Established a national firearms registry, which is my, register your car thing, register your gun. Instituted a 28-day waiting period for gun purchases, and bought and destroyed more than 600,000 civilian-owned firearms in a scheme that cost $500 million and was funded by raising taxes. The conservative government now, John Howard, the sort of George W. Bush of Australia. He's no longer in office, but he said, quote, "It is incontestable that gun-related homicides have fallen quite significantly in Australia. We have a 74% decline in gun-involved suicide rates as evidence of the legislation working." He was originally opposed to this legislation. Where are we at in the United States, and what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, first of all, Tom, I mean, it's so funny. Not 24 hours ago, I was using this very example to the Beloit Daily News, which is Beloit's the second largest city in my district, but it's just south of Janesville, where Paul Ryan's from. And the editorial board, one of the main editor who describes himself as a conservative, said, well, what do we really need to do? Like, what's the real issues around this? I'm like, look, Australia is a country that is very, very similar to us. They actually went ahead and addressed gun violence because they recognized guns is one of the two words in gun violence, and because of it, they significantly reduced what happened, and we have to look at them to see what would work in this country. And, right now, all we've done in Congress was a bit more than lip service. We passed a bill that puts $75 million out over a year for the next 10 years to address things like hotlines and some school security improvements and around the edge sort of stuff. But just to give you an idea, I had a conservative woman last night at the town hall said, okay, so the governor in Wisconsin is going to put $100 million towards school safety. How would you spend it? And I had to compare $100 million by a conservative governor who wasn't planning on doing anything serious in Wisconsin versus nationwide, we were putting $75 million in a year. That's nothing. So that's all that Congress has done so far. So we've done the bare minimum, and yet there are a lot of issues we should address, from background checks to the use of automatic weapons to a bunch of other issues that you just mentioned that Australia looked at and that we've introduced in bills in the United States. Two of them we've done discharge petitions on so that we can try to actually force a vote. But again, this is a different time. I feel like this movement, having last Saturday be the largest youth organized rally since Vietnam War, there's some legs on this, and we have to take advantage of this opportunity to listen to the people who are going to be most impacted in the future by this and impacted every single day when they go to school. So Australia is a perfect example, I think, to point to, Tom, when we want to talk about how it's worked somewhere else and why it can work here.
Yeah, the guy who led the campaign in '96 did an interview with this newspaper, and he said, one day during a TV interview, I said, we register cars, we register boats, we even register dogs. So what's the problem with registering guns? It was the perfect soundbite. The next day, a senior police official repeated the very same line on national television. From that point on, the air seemed to go right out of the gun lobby's tires. So, interesting.
And I'll tell you, a big part of this, too, if I can, Tom, is just, what I noticed at the rally we had in Wisconsin was we started defining the NRA for what they really are. The NRA is not the family in Wisconsin that every fall goes hunting as a family tradition because no one's going after their rifle. And the NRA is not a person who, might live alone in a tough neighborhood and has a handgun for personal protection. That's not the NRA. The NRA is a bunch of gun manufacturers who want to sell more guns so that they can take more vacations and have bigger garages than their neighbors. That is the NRA. And the sooner we get to people understanding the NRA doesn't care what happens once they sell the gun, they just want to sell more guns, then we can, I think, really start to define this issue as it's not people who think they're the NRA. It's the NRA is a lobby of gun manufacturers trying to make more money, and they don't care at what cost.
Yeah, it certainly seems to be the case. I have other questions about the census, about Paul Ryan, about Stormy Daniels, but I see that many of those questions are already on the board here with people calling in, so I'll let our listeners ask you what's going on. And so, ready to pick up some phone calls here?
Absolutely.
Okay, let's go for it. Helen in Ithaca, New York, listening to WRSI. You are on the air with Congressman Mark Pocan. Helen.
Hi, good afternoon or good morning, Congressman and Tom. I wanted to see what the congressman, what his opinion is, and what the Democrats might be doing about this, which I think is an attempt to maximize Republican votes, to put the question on the census as to whether or not one is an immigrant, and that has not appeared on a census since 1950.
Yeah, Helen, a great point. This is one of those issues that they did, without a lot of warning. All of a sudden, they decided to add a question about the census, about citizenship on the census. And I was listening to, and don't ask me why, a conservative talk radio host out of Milwaukee this morning while I was on the treadmill. And they've started this lie saying, "Oh, Bill Clinton had the exact same question," and it's not true. The last time, as you said, that this question was asked was in 1950. So for us to go back to 1950, there must be a really, really good reason other than they're trying to cook the books on how they do the census in order to try to, again, affect politicians picking their voters rather than the other way around. And it has a lot of ramifications around assistance and monies that go out. If you scare people off, and right now is certainly a time people are scared off by the federal government, if you're a non-citizen, there's a lot of reasons to be afraid of the government and what they'll do with this kind of data. So it's, again, part of that thuggish behavior that we see repeated over and over and over by Donald Trump and his administration to try to scare people into not filling out these things, the surveys, and it will have a really negative impact. So I was glad to see Javier Becerra, my old colleague, who's now the Attorney General in California, along with, I think it's a dozen states suing on this front. They think they have a good case based on constitutional grounds, and I tend to agree from what I've heard of how they've presented it. And you're right, though. This is another way of Republicans trying to cook the books and trying to pick their voters rather than allowing the system to work.
That's great. Congressman Mark Pocan is with us. It is Middays with Mark here on the Thom Hartmann Program. Congressman Pocan taking your calls for the hour. The lines are all full now, as it appears. And so we will be picking up your calls and more right after this. You can check out Congressman Pocan's website at pocan.house.gov. And you can tweet him at Rep. Mark Pocan. He is the co-chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, the largest caucus in the Democratic Party. We'll be right back.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Back with more of your calls for Congressman Mark Pocan right after this. And welcome back. Jim in Martinsburg, West Virginia, watching us on Free Speech TV. You are on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Hi, sir. Again, I called you on Friday, but I wanted to ask the congressman this, what he thinks the 3 bullet points for the Democrats in 2018 should be. That's not just what we would do, but the 3 most important things across the country.
Like the 3 bumper stickers.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll tell you, Jim, I'm probably going to answer it slightly different. I'm going to apologize up front for that because the way I look at it is we have to talk about what people talk about at their kitchen table, which is economic issues. And which economic issues exactly are the ones, I think that's part of what we're figuring out. But I think if we don't lead with what people actually talk about at their kitchen table, which is can they afford their rent or mortgage, do they have health care for their family, can they send their kids to college if they want to go to college, can they take a family vacation that year? That's what most real people who don't live and breathe politics talk about. And unless we talk about those issues, we're not engaging.
So wouldn't it be, raise the minimum wage, free Medicare for all, and free college education?
Potentially, or I would even go, I think one of the things we learned from Connor Lamb's race is we don't have to be afraid to talk about unions and collective bargaining rights because there's support for that, because it's really standing up to the big corporations in Wall Street by doing so. So I think I don't necessarily saying here's the 3, but I'm saying what we've got to do is they've got to be focused around kitchen table economic issues, and very likely they're what you said, but I think we could get the exact wording yet to come.
Amen. We have a minute and a half to the break here. Jackie in Carson City, Nevada. Quick question for Congressman Pocan.
Yes, thank you for taking my call. My quick question is, which state should I relocate to when I really, really need to be covered with health insurance, and I don't have any right now, and I don't want to be relying on a job? Which state is closest?
Oh, Jackie, I honestly don't have the answer for you to that. I know that some states have different plans. Some offer Medicaid. It all depends on your unique situation. So, unfortunately, I'm guessing there are some websites out there that can tell you what different states have available. I just think it should be a point where we have a system that works for everyone nationally, which is why I've been a strong advocate for single payer or a Medicare for all system, because then it doesn't matter what state you live in, you have a right to health care as it should be.
Well, right now it seems, we have a minute here, right now it seems like the best thing that Jackie could do would be to figure out which state is closest to Nevada that has a Democratic governor and a Democratic legislature. California is right next door.
It might be California. Yep.
But I'm not sure about the other states in that area. Do you know off the top of your head how many states have still refused to expand Medicaid?
It's a smaller number. I mean, unfortunately, my state, Scott Walker's one of them, and now that he's up for election and could very likely lose because he just gave a $4.5 billion subsidy to a foreign corporation in Foxconn, he's suddenly coming up with health care plans to help cover people, but he still won't expand Medicaid, which would be the most logical way to do it.
And inexpensive, right? Because are the federal matching dollars still available at the levels that they were when Obamacare was rolled out, like 95% for the first 3 years, kind of thing?
I don't know that offhand, Tom. I'm not exactly sure because so much has moved. We're experiencing right now death by 1,000 cuts when it comes to the Affordable Care Act, intentionally done by this president and this Congress. And when there was a bipartisan attempt at a fix in the Senate to put the omnibus, they turned it down.
Yeah, it certainly seems so. Congressman Mark Pocan with us for the hour, Middays with Mark here on the Thom Hartmann Program. We'll be back with more of your calls for the Congressman right after this. Welcome back. Congressman Mark Pocan taking your calls for the hour. Middays with Mark here on the Thom Hartmann Program, pocan.house.gov, and you can tweet him at Rep. Mark Pocan. And Richard in Chicago, you're on the air. Thanks for listening to WCPT. You're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Well, thank you for taking my call, because I am an NRA member that would like to see the NRA soften its stance on certain things, with military-style rifles, that kind of stuff. But my fear is that when you look at the Democratic Party, when you look at California and New York, you basically see the Democratic Party really wanting to confiscate guns and or make them illegal to own, or as tough as possible to own. So that's my fear, is that...
I don't know anybody in the Democratic Party who's taking that position, Richard. Do you, Congressman Pocan?
No, in fact, Richard, when I spoke at the rally and what I said at the beginning of the program was, no one's trying to go after a rifle that you use for hunting, and no one is going after your handgun that you use for personal protection. That's not what this is about. Right now, this is about making sure that we keep guns out of the hands of people who shouldn't have it. We stop the assault-style weapons, and we have some better approaches towards gun violence. But we're not talking about, what 98% of the people probably in this country actually own, which are, again, the hunting rifle and the personal protection handgun.
Yeah. So when you hear those stories on Fox So-Called News or Right Wing Hate Radio, it's a lie. Pat in Beloit, Wisconsin, you're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Well, I just want to thank Congressman Pocan because I was at his town hall meeting last night, and the crowd was good. It was large, and he was very informative, and I just want to thank him for holding that because we need to have the town hall meetings.
Well, thank you, Pat. This is, again, like I said, the basic of my job. If I'm not doing this, I'm not doing my job. We need to convince the other guy who represents the other half of Rock County, Paul Ryan, to do his job. He hasn't, for I think it's almost been 2 years now, has not had a public town hall. And I don't know how he can then say he represents the southeastern part of Wisconsin if he doesn't actually talk to his constituents in Washington. He does a great job of representing the billionaires and of the special interests in Washington, Wall Street. He's on top of the charts, but he's certainly not representing the views of southeastern Wisconsin, and that's why I was glad to be there last night. And like I said, we've got 3 more coming yet during these 2 weeks.
Congressman, we just have 40 seconds to the break here. I saw the rumors that Paul Ryan was thinking of resigning. I've also heard rumors that this from a fairly well-connected, high-level Democratic donor that I met Saturday in Los Angeles, that there's word that Robert Mueller's investigation may end up essentially decapitating the Trump administration, that Pence could get caught up in this too. And if that's the case, Paul Ryan could be the next president of the United States. What are your thoughts on all that?
You know, I honestly, Tom, a lot of this is interesting speculation, but I've got a lot more things I'm working on right now. I think on Paul, at first I said there's no way he would not run again, because it would be terrible if the speaker, sitting speaker, doesn't run. What does that say about his party? However, you know, he's not giving a lot of strong inclinations back home that he's running again. And, you know, if he's afraid he's going to lose his seat to Randy Bryce, or if he's afraid that he's going to lose Congress under his watch, suddenly it's not as easy to get that really great paying job that he thinks he earned after he gave tax breaks to the top 1% last November.
There you go.
So, yeah, there's a chance.
I was wrong on my time. I'm sorry. I was looking at the wrong cue on my clock here. So Linda in Deerfield Beach, Florida. We still have a couple of minutes. Linda in Deerfield Beach, Florida. You're on the air. Thanks for listening to Sirius XM. You're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Thank you, Congressman, for all you're doing. My question relates to federal pensions. I've worked for the post office for 20 years. I am a baby boomer. There's rumors that President Trump now wants to slice and dice us again, and he wants to go after federal pensions. And that's going to affect many of us who were being baby boomers. There's 10,000 of us, you know, a day or a month retiring. And
it's a day, 10,000 a day.
Is it a day?
Yep.
Yeah. And we're going to need that Medicare. We're going to need Social Security. He's also thinking about slicing and dicing that. What are your thoughts? What are you guys, you know, how are you going to help us? And how do we fight back? And I'll take your answers off the air. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Linda. First of all, on the federal pension for federal employees, I mean, we've heard some ramblings that they might try to do something, but we haven't seen a lot of actions yet in that direction, but we're ready for it because, you know, one of the things that, you know, people know from what I mentioned after the president went and fired Andrew McCabe was, you know, to me, pensions and retirement issues are very, very important. I grew up in a lower middle class family. I'm still not one of the millionaires in Congress. When you attack people's pensions, you're attacking their futures, right? I mean, most people have paid their lifetime into it, and you need to make sure that that's protected. Add that to Social Security and Medicare, two of the most popular programs that the federal government offers. And we've got a lot of areas the Republicans would like to try to attack and go after and give Wall Street the ability to make a lot of money at the expense and risk of all of our pensions. So I think this is one of the biggest issues we are probably going to be debating in the next 5 years in general, Tom, is retirement security and pension issues from multi-employer down to individuals. About a third of the people in the country only have Social Security. About half the people have Social Security in their home, and only about 1 out of every 8 people have $200,000 or more for retirement. So, and it's declining. So we need to address this in a much more substantive way, or else we're going to have, I think, some serious problems in the future.
Yeah, we're looking at the consequences of 35 years of Reaganism. It's insane. It's insane, the death of the middle class. Congressman Mark Pocan taking your calls for the hour here in the first hour of our Wednesday show. As usual, it is Middays with Mark. Congressman Pocan is the co-chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, the largest caucus in the Democratic Party, and the Progressive Caucus. You can tweet him at Rep. Mark Pocan. His website is pocan.house.gov.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
Back with more of your calls for Congressman Pocan right after this. Fund drive, membership drive, both, all of the above. This day, there's only 2 days left. Well, 3 days left, I guess. Today is Wednesday, and then Thursday and Friday. So yesterday we had a great day. The matching grants, so many of you stepped up and said, yes, I'd love to see my gift doubled. That we hit our $15,000 goal, and it got matched. And so now we're only, you know, for the 3-week period, the whole 3-week period, we're only about $10,000 or $15,000 down, but we only have 3 days left, and we have to hit $10,000 each one of those 3 days, plus, you know, make up what little is left over from yesterday's really good day. So please don't stop. We don't have the matching grants anymore, but still, it's really important. If you haven't yet called Free Speech TV to join, to participate. We need to hit these levels, or the network starts to flounder. It's just that simple. And if we can hit these goals, in fact, if we can beat these goals, which has always been my goal, and we've done it in previous years. This year is a tough one. I'm guessing a lot of people are contributing to political campaigns. We saw the same thing in the one fund drive just before the last, the elections in 2016. But Free Speech TV is important too. And in fact, Free Speech TV is supporting the campaigns, indirectly by telling the truth on the air about what's going on, indirectly supporting the campaigns of, progressive candidates all across the country. So please consider a contribution to Free Speech TV now if you haven't already. 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. Tip of the hat to Mark B. from San Jose yesterday, who made a $1,000 gift. Free Speech, a number of people who've made the $1,000 gifts, which is where, come to Portland and I'll take you to lunch, have said, rather than flying to Portland and going through all the expense and hassle of that, and, for an hour and a half with Thom, half hour in the studio and an hour of lunch, I'd rather just talk to him on the phone. And so Free Speech has said, okay, cool, you can have a half hour with Thom on the phone. And I did that with 2 of our $1,000 donors yesterday who preferred to talk to me on the phone instead of coming here. And it had some fascinating conversations. And I actually, one of our donors who wanted to have a phone conversation with me is like really deep in the whole thing with with what's going on with vaccines and the peanut oil that they're adding to vaccines, or that they're using to somehow stimulate the immune system. And it appears that this is causing the epidemic of peanut allergies in the United States. They're using sesame oil in Israel, and now they're getting sesame allergies in Israel. It's real interesting stuff. So I got to dig into that. But in any case, I learned from these. They're great. So that's an option on those. But with a $30 gift, you get your choice of the Free Speech TV blue logo bumper sticker with the website and the logo, or the black "This is not normal" bumper sticker, or the "Elect a Clown, Expect a Circus" bumper sticker, or the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker with a $30 gift. With the $60 gift, which could be $5 a month for a year, you get a lapel pin that says "Love Conquers Hate" by the Human Rights Campaign, the Free Speech TV blue grocery bag, and the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. With a $72 gift, you get all 4 of those bumper stickers that I mentioned, the Free Speech TV logo, "This is not normal," "Elect a Clown, Expect a Circus," and Thom Hartmann University. With a $120 gift, which could be $10 a month for a year, you get my book, Unequal Protection, autographed by the author. And you get an autographed photo that Louise took of me when we were in Havana, Cuba, or Cuba, I guess, is how it's correctly. In any case, in Cuba last month with Code Pink. That was a wonderful trip, by the way, and I met some really, really great people that I hope to keep in touch with and hope to see on future trips. With a $240 gift, you get the Free Speech TV T-shirt. That's small, medium, large, or extra large. It says "Building a Just World" on the front and "Standing in Unity" on the back. You get the Free Speech with this freespeechtv.org print on the back. You get the "Love Conquers Hate" lapel pin from the Human Rights Campaign. You get an autographed copy of my book, Unequal Protection, and you get Bonnie Siegler's book, Signs of Resistance, A Visual History of Protest in America. With a $360 gift, you also get the photo of me in Cuba, autographed. You get my autographed book, Unequal Protection. You get the book by Patrice Kahn-Kuhlers, When They Call You a Terrorist, Lives of Black Lives Matters. You get the book by Bonnie Siegler, Signs of Resistance, A Visual History of Protest in America. You get a 1-year subscription to our podcasts, and our podcasts are great. You can listen to the show anytime, anywhere, commercial, and we take all the commercials and everything. You get 4 bumper stickers, all 4 bumper stickers. With a $480 gift, you get our DVD of me in Cuba, my book, Unequal Protection, When They Call You a Terrorist book, Signs of Resistance book, and the Free Speech TV T-shirt. And with $1,000, as I mentioned, come to Portland and I'll hang out with you for a bit of the afternoon, or we can have a nice telephone conversation. Those are the goodies, but the really important thing is we need to hit at least $10,000 for today. Yesterday was the first day we've done that in a big way, I think, in this fund drive. And so please call now. We need your help. We need to keep this network going. Free Speech TV is a vital part of the American media landscape. Call now. Thank you. Welcome back. It's Middays with Mark. Congressman Mark Pocan taking your calls for the hour. And Kim in Portland, Oregon, listening on X-Ray FM. Kim, you're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Hi. Thank you both. Congressman, we need some kind of truth in campaigning law. Is that possible so that when somebody like Trump campaigns on a variety of promises that he does the opposite of when he gets elected, he can be held accountable and there's some redress? Is there a way that something like that could happen?
Don't you wish? Unfortunately, the best we have is, you can vote against either that candidate again or their party if they're not delivering on what they promised. One of our big problems that we have, period, in campaigning is, we don't know where the money comes in anymore, so that's all hidden. We don't really know when Donald Trump says a lot of things he was going to do and hasn't done. In some cases, that's a good thing, right? He wants this wall so desperately, and we're not allowing him to have it. But, the best we have is you can punish that candidate or their party, and I think that's what's happening right now in November. The reason 39 state legislative districts have flipped from Republican to Democrat since Donald Trump came in and only 4 the other direction is because people aren't happy with him not living up to his promises and what he's done so far in his agenda. So I'm open to suggestions, Kim, if we have a better way to hold people accountable. But right now the ballot box is that, and let's hope it gets used with that message in November.
Pete in Minneapolis, Minnesota. You're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Thanks, folks. Congressman, we can vote early here in Minnesota, and I am in Keith Ellison's district, and my wife and I and sons are planning on taking time off work to basically bring a caravan of our household out to Wisconsin somewhere and drive people to the polls, So I just wondered, I had reached out to a bunch of different places, like on Facebook or Vote Riders or something, to just say, hey, look, I'm offering my services here. I can drive people to the polls. My family's available to come across the state of Wisconsin and help you folks, take out Paul Ryan or whomever, And I haven't heard anything back. Is there a one-stop shop? I'm thinking maybe some of these places are just swamped, But I don't know. What do you think?
No, Pete, first of all, thanks for the offer, and it can be helpful. And there's probably even some kind of competitive races just across the state line from you. Keith Ellison's one of my best friends and colleagues in Congress, so I'm glad that you're well represented. But, if there's a specific campaign you can reach out to, or the other thing I've noticed is Indivisible, I think, does one of the best jobs of connecting people, because the various Indivisible groups, sometimes they'll post, ways to contact legislators, how to contact people in other states to contact their legislators. They're pretty sophisticated at doing this, so you might want to check in with Indivisible. I can't say they definitively have it, but they're very sophisticated. Otherwise, reach out to the campaigns and offer that way, because that is probably the most direct way. And again, on that western part of the state, that's one of our more competitive parts of Wisconsin. It's not that far from you, and I'm sure they could appreciate the help, and thanks for offering.
Andrew in Columbus, Ohio, listening on WGRN. Andrew, you're on the air with Congressman Pocan. Andrew? Oh, no Andrew. Let's try Alex in Edison, New Jersey. Alex, you're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Hello, Tom. Hello, Congressman.
Hi, Alex.
Is it okay? 2 questions, one serious, one kind of tongue-in-cheek.
Alex, I can't hear you. Is there any way you can get closer to your phone microphone or something? It sounds like you're calling from outer space.
Is that better?
Yes, that's much better.
Okay. 2 questions, one serious, one tongue-in-cheek. First, I intend to donate a little to your campaign. I would also like to donate to other Democrats who don't take corporate money. Where can I find such a list of people? I don't have time to investigate the filing statements of course, all the Congress people. And secondly, hopefully you're in the mood for a laugh here. Is Hope going to be on the ballot in 2018? Because according to Pelosi, when Democrats put Hope on the ballot, you win.
Gotcha. I appreciate what you're saying there. On the corporate money question, two things. One, I can tell you that End Citizens United, I know, has a list of about 20 to, I want to say 30 candidates who are running on no corporate PAC money. I remember seeing my friend Randy Bryce's name on that list, as well as others. So I'm quite sure if you go to End Citizens United's website, you could get a list of candidates currently doing that. But I'll tell you something that we haven't publicly announced yet, but I'll share it first here on Tom's show. We took a vote last week, the Congressional Progressive Caucus, and our PAC is going to be the first major PAC that does not take corporate PAC money. We've decided to go that direction. We think it's important enough. So, we use it to support progressives in all races. I think we've endorsed about 20 people so far, including some incumbents. That's another good site to take a look at. But End Citizens United, I think, can connect you to about 20 to 30 people who are not taking corporate PAC money.
Great. Dion in Round Lake, Illinois. Hey, Dion, you're on the air with Congressman Mark Pocan.
Yeah, Autism Awareness Month is next month, and there's a lot of unemployment with people on the autism spectrum and people also with disabilities. My question is, do you think red and blue voters could rally around the federal jobs guarantee bill?
Dion, that's a great question, and it's really kind of a fairly recent public debate. There have been some folks who have written books on this previously, and now you're starting to see it even come out of Silicon Valley and a few other places. Talk about some kind of guaranteed income or some other ideas like that. I think it's definitely a worthy part of the overall conversation, but I don't know if it's risen to the point that I'm hearing a lot of candidates or groups bring it up in questionnaires as something that is at front of mind right now. But it certainly is gaining attention nationally.
Randy in Grand Rapids, Ohio. You're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Hi, it's a pleasure to talk to you guys. I appreciate it. It's a sad day, though, when my generation, I've already apologized to my children of what we've failed them, and we failed them tremendously. And every young person that I talk to, I have to apologize to them for my generation failing them. And when we started out with so much hope. Back in Vietnam days, we helped to stop the Vietnam War, protesting and so on. So I guess it's more of a comment that we should caution this generation to not sell out to the powers that be, the oligarchs that'll try and put them down at every turn, and so on. And please don't end up like my generation did, failing your generation. So it's more of a comment, I guess.
No, I hear you, Randy. It's interesting, too. We had a conversation with Senator Markey from Massachusetts recently about net neutrality and talk about issues that, again, among younger folks, that's off the charts. Although I would argue, based on the people who contacted my office, it's off the charts with everyone, but especially among younger voters. They're really into things like non-discrimination. The gun issue has certainly captured their attention, and they're being very active right now. And issues like net neutrality, again, last night in the town hall, the person who asked the question on net neutrality was the person who was about 13, 14 years old. This is something that we need to listen to the issues that they're talking about and they care about, and we have to be listening and responding. And I think the points you bring up are very strong, Randy.
Christian in Bronx, New York. Hey, Christian, thanks for listening through our website at thomhartmann.com. You're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Hey, thanks for letting me speak. You were talking about insurance, single payer earlier. I am on Medicare. I'm on disability. I've been on disability for over 15 years with Medicare. But I was hit by a cab, and that brought New Jersey PLEGA, the cab health insurer, into the picture. And basically my problem has been, over a period of nearly 4 years now, that the taxi cab insurance company, everything that they should be paying for is a haggle with them. It's a hassle. They don't want to pay for anything. And Medicare will pay for stuff if the secondary insurer, i.e. the taxi cab insurer, goes away. And I am so sick of this nonsense Basically, you know,
Christian, we can't deal with individual issues on this program. Is there a question you have?
Yeah, my question is this: can we make Medicare the default payer and get rid of all these pre-approval stuff and have it reviewed later if the insurance companies challenge it?
You know, I think we need to take the Medicare debate to, I think, the logical conclusion, which is either do we make it Medicare for all through a single-payer system, or do we allow people to buy into Medicare, which is another issue that I think that has a lot of public support. It starts getting complex if you don't change the system and you just make it the primary payer. I'm not sure how easy that would be to do, but I do think what you're saying, Christian, is you're bringing up, as soon as you get into the healthcare system, it gets very complex very quickly when you have all these different entities. And if you have a single payer, you wouldn't have any of the confusion because you'd just be covered because you have health insurance. And I think that's really where we need to keep our eyes most focused on this issue. And let's remember that, again, we just did a poll for the Progressive Caucus. We went into 30 competitive congressional districts across the country, and very, very strong support for Medicare for all, for single payer, and even for buying into Medicare. All of those had wide support in swing districts. So any politician who tells you that we're not ready for it just means they're not ready to listen to their constituents. The people are ready for it.
Right, and if we had Medicare for all, we could do away with workman's comp insurance, all these other things. I mean, this would be great for employers as well as employees. People don't even think about all those ancillary things. Congressman Mark Pocan taking your calls for the hour on Middays with Mark here on the Thom Hartmann Program. We'll be back with more of your calls for Congressman Pocan in just a moment.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
And you can reach Congressman Mark Pocan. You can tweet him at Rep. Mark Pocan, and his website is pocan.house.gov. And welcome back. Mary Kay in Lexington, Kentucky, watching us on YouTube. Hey, Mary Kay, you're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Hey, you guys. Good to talk to you today. I just had a thought about, and this might be a little off topic, about this question on our census about whether you are a citizen or not. What if we all just didn't answer that question? I mean, because to me, it doesn't seem that important. And then we might get closer to the correct count for the nation. Just a thought.
Yeah, Mary Kay, it's interesting you said that. Since I'm not in D.C. this week, I haven't brought it up to my staff, but one of my first reactions was, what if we just told everyone, don't answer it? Can you do that, or is that lying somehow, or not filling it out properly, and are there other consequences? I don't know, but my gut had a similar reaction. And interesting, Tom, someone actually did send us a tweet on this and said, can't we ask on the census how many guns in your household? And they had a little funny. After that, it's like, really, we're going to start making this quite a document, I guess. But no question, they're trying to cause disruption by doing this. And, I think this is just a story just starting to unfold, and we're going to have a lot of good efforts, including what the Attorney General in California and other states are challenging now legally, that doesn't say to count your citizens. It says count how many people are in a country and that they're in violation, therefore.
Yeah, I was trying to find the article. I read it this morning when I got up around 5 a.m. and I thought I'd emailed it to myself, but I don't find it in my own email. But it was the Washington Post or the Financial Times, I think, had an article about how when citizenship questions are included in anything in a community, you can see between a 40% and 70% decrease in participation in particularly the Hispanic community. And it's not that these people who are being asked the question are not citizens. It's that their nephew might not be a citizen, or their aunt might not be a citizen, or and they may have an extended family that includes 40 or 50 people, but one of them might not be a citizen, and it freaks them out, and they don't want to, get in that situation. And this is, and the Republicans know this, and so this is just another voter suppression effort. They went after voter suppression against the black community overtly And now that, in a variety of ways. I mean, if you look at the felon list thing that George W. Bush did for his brother, Jeb Bush did for his brother in 2000, throwing 90,000 African Americans off the voting rolls because they had similar names to Texas felons, and in Florida, and now it's trying to suppress the Hispanic vote.
Yeah.
Of actual Hispanic citizens.
And what they'll do then is they'll try to take away congressional districts from states that have larger populations like that, and then hoping that they can maybe save them in some other areas where they're more likely to hold a seat. I mean, it's done for every wrong reason possible. But again, I have faith in the American people on this, and I think the more gets out about this, the better off we're going to be able to handle it.
We have 15 seconds. How do the Democrats message this? The Republicans, it's easy messaging. Don't you want citizens?
Oh yeah. They always have that, right? They always, because they can make it whatever they want to. I think the best message for us is we haven't done this since 1950. Give me a good, valid reason why we have to include it again. I mean, 1950 is a long time.
Yeah, there you go. Congressman Mark Pocan taking your calls. We'll be back with more of your calls for Congressman Pocan in just a moment. It's Middays with Mark on the Thom Hartmann Program, the place where smart people get their news. Stick around. Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Welcome back. Congressman Mark Pocan taking your calls for the hour. Dennis in Alexandria, Virginia. Hey, Dennis, thanks for listening to Sirius XM. You are on the air.
Hi, Tom and Congressman. I appreciate the step of stopping selling assault rifles, but why can't we go all the way and ban the possession of assault rifles? Otherwise, we're just given the right after some more killings of saying, see, that didn't do any good. Why can't we ban their existence totally?
Yeah, I mean, Dennis, I think, let's get to the point that we're at a table and we can put all these items on the table. I think previously the fact that we had a ban shows we had it, and it wasn't like criminals took over the street. So I think at least we've got something on precedent to show on that. That's why a lot of us have been advocating for that. But again, let's look at what Australia did. What can we learn from the Australian experience? And we're not that dissimilar. Let's really have a meaningful conversation, which is I think what we're starting to have thanks to really what was coming out of originally Parkland, Florida, and now youth across the country. So this may be the moment we can have all these conversations.
Keith in Garden Valley, Idaho. You're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Yes, Congressman Pocan. I'm a big fan of the Progressive Caucus, the one Bernie Sanders is with, caucuses with you guys. And I guess my question was, I've often tried to support you guys, with money. I don't have a whole lot of money, but if I give any money to the Democratic Party, I want it to go to you. And I've tried to make that happen, but, to always Act Blue or one of those organizations like that. And so is the only way to give money to support the progressive side of the Democratic Party, which is way different than the DNC to me, is to give them directly to like Keith Ellison or Jan Schakowsky or yourself or all the good people. I love the people's budget.
Is your question, Keith? How do you donate money to the Progressive Caucus directly? Is that essentially your question?
Can I do that? Is
Yeah.
that possible?
Okay, thank you,
Yeah,
Keith.
yeah, and yes, you can, Keith. And actually, I mean, that way we make sure it goes to all the different progressives that we endorse across the country for House seats. Just so you know, the DNC and the Progressive Caucus have no affiliation whatsoever. So if you give to the DNC, it'll never wind up to the Progressive Caucus. But we try to be good stewards of the resources we have. We try to support candidates across the country. We just had another batch of endorsements last week, and we're going to keep having them throughout the cycle. So we appreciate, again, looking to try to get more progressives into Congress at a time that the Blue Dogs and others are trying to say that the only way we're going to take the majority is with more conservative members. There will be districts where more conservative members will get elected, but we can also elect progressives across the country.
John in Elkhart, Indiana, you're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Hi, Congressman. This is a suggestion that I came up with, and I've tried to spread it around amongst congressmen and senators, but nobody seems to pay attention. But we retirees have massive amounts of money in our IRAs, which we can't use unless we pay taxes on. The average retiree owes about $800 on their mortgage every month. And I thought if we could use that IRA money, let it remain part of the IRA, but use that IRA money to pay off our mortgage and put that money in the economy, it would spread a lot of money into the economy, and it would also give some relief to retirees that are living on Social Security or small pensions. Your thoughts on that? I don't know if it take legislation or rule changes or what, but it just seems like a logical thing to do.
Yeah, John, I hear what you're saying. I think, the competing force that we have coming, and I think, again, it's going to be one of the most significant debates we're going to have probably in the next 5 years, is that, a lot of people who used to have multi-employer pensions don't anymore because unions, the rate of unionization has gone down. More and more people are working jobs where they don't have a pension through their job. We're seeing the number of people who are living on Social Security or Social Security in just the home they have to be almost half the people in the country. And, it's going to be a growing problem as people get to live older. There may be more reasons we want people to be incentivized to save for being older so that, they're able to live in dignity after working their entire life. So this is a much bigger debate that hopefully we'll be having as a country, but you're not going to have it by going after Social Security or Medicare or things that people also need to count on in retirement. So I appreciate what you're saying on your suggestion. Let me mull that over a little, but I know that one of the things we're trying to do is grow the amount of savings people have towards retirement.
Congressman, we have a half a minute left until the end of the hour. What should we be looking at in the next week coming up? And what should we be doing and preparing for?
Yeah, I'll tell you. I mean, I think you've got a lot of local elections across the country. I know in Wisconsin we have one coming up on Tuesday. We've got a very conservative Supreme Court candidate, and then we've got Rebecca Dallett running, who would be a good addition to our Supreme Court. I think that's across the country. A lot of these spring elections are coming up. People should, I think, pay attention to those where they can. That would be very helpful. And, I guess follow the president's daily tweets. Unfortunately, that seems to drive the news cycle, but we're out of session for a couple weeks, so Congress will be a little bit less active than usual.
Yeah, and suggest to your congressman, particularly or a woman congressperson, particularly if they're a Republican, to do a damn town hall.
Yeah, I mean, and what the kids at Parkland have, I shouldn't say the kids, the youth at Parkland have said is April 7th, they're giving people plenty of time if they haven't planned one, so there's no excuse for someone not to have a town hall.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
The Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by the Aiden Forecast, an investment newsletter with weekly updates of leading market indicators and a monthly deep dive into what the details of the economy and the markets mean for investors and retirees. On the web at aidenmarkets.com.
Wines have some of the highest pesticide levels in our food chain. This hour brought to you by ecowine.com. Pesticide-free wines, organic wines, imported from France by the Organic Wine Company, ecowine.com.
Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by Super Beets. Super Beets are sourced from non-GMO beets, and they're packed with dietary nitrates, helping to produce nitric oxide for more energy, stamina, and support for healthy blood pressure levels naturally. For more information, call 800-223-8242
or visit tomsbeets.com.
Fund drive, membership drive, both, all of the above. There's only 2 days left. Well, 3 days left, I guess. Today is Wednesday, and then Thursday and Friday. So yesterday we had a great day. The matching grants, so many of you stepped up and said, yes, I'd love to see my gift doubled, that we hit our $15,000 goal and it got matched. And so now we're only, for the 3-week period, the whole 3-week period, we're only about $10,000 or $15,000 down, but we only have 3 days left, and we have to hit $10,000 each one of those 3 days, plus, make up what little is left over from yesterday's really good day. So please don't stop. We don't have the matching grants anymore, but still, it's really important. If you haven't yet called Free Speech TV to join, to participate, we need to hit these levels, or the network starts to flounder. It's just that simple. And if we can hit these goals, in fact, if we can beat these goals, which has always been my goal, and we've done it in previous years. This year is a tough one. I'm guessing a lot of people are contributing to political campaigns. We saw the same thing in the one fund drive just before the last, the elections in 2016. But Free Speech TV is important too. And in fact, Free Speech TV is supporting the campaigns, indirectly by telling the truth on the air about what's going on, indirectly supporting the campaigns of progressive candidates all across the country. So please consider a contribution to Free Speech TV now if you haven't already. 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. Tip of the hat to Mark B. from San Jose yesterday, who made a $1,000 gift. Free Speech, a number of people who've made the $1,000 gifts, which is where, come to Portland and I'll take you to lunch, have said, rather than flying to Portland and going through all the expense and hassle of that, and, for an hour and a half with Tom, half hour in the studio and an hour of lunch, I'd rather just talk to him on the phone. And so Free Speech has said, okay, cool, you can have a half hour with Tom on the phone. And I did that with 2 of our $1,000 donors yesterday who preferred to talk to me on the phone instead of coming here. And it had some fascinating conversations. And I actually, one of our donors who wanted to have a phone conversation with me is like really deep in the whole thing with what's going on with vaccines and the peanut oil that they're adding to vaccines, or that they're using to somehow stimulate the immune system. And it appears that this is causing the epidemic of peanut allergies in the United States. They're using sesame oil in Israel, and now they're getting sesame allergies in Israel. It's real interesting stuff. So I got to dig into that. But in any case, I learned from these. They're great. So that's an option on those. But with a $30 gift, you get your choice of the Free Speech TV blue logo bumper sticker with the website and the logo, or the black "This Is Not Normal" bumper sticker, or the "Elect a Clown, Expect a Circus" bumper sticker, or the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker with a $30 gift. With the $60 gift, which could be $5 a month for a year, you get a lapel pin that says "Love Conquers Hate" by the Human Rights Campaign, the Free Speech TV blue grocery bag, and the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. With a $72 gift, you get all 4 of those bumper stickers that I mentioned. The Free Speech TV logo, "This Is Not Normal," "Elect a Clown, Expect a Circus," and Thom Hartmann University. With a $120 gift, which could be $10 a month for a year, you get my book, Unequal Protection, autographed by the author. And you get an autographed photo that Louise took of me when we were in Havana, Cuba, or Cuba, I guess, is how it's correctly pronounced. In any case, in Cuba last month with Code Pink. That was a wonderful trip, by the way, and I met some really, really great people that I hope to keep in touch with and hope to see on future trips. With a $240 gift, you get the Free Speech TV T-shirt. That's small, medium, large, or extra large. It says "Building a Just World" on the front and "Standing in Unity" on the back. You get the Free Speech with the Free Speech TV .org print on the back. You get the Love Conquers Hate lapel pin from the Human Rights Campaign. You get an autographed copy of my book on equal protection, and you get Bonnie Siegler's book, Signs of Resistance, A Visual History of Protest in America. With a $360 gift, you also get the photo of me in Cuba, autographed. You get my autographed book on equal protection. You get the book by Patrice Kahn-Kuhlers, When They Call You a Terrorist, Lives of Black Lives Matters. You get the book by Bonnie Siegler, Signs of Resistance, A Visual History of Protest in America. You get a one-year subscription to our podcasts, and our podcasts are great. You can listen to the show anytime, anywhere, commercial, and there's no, we take all the commercials and everything. You get 4 bumper stickers, all 4 bumper stickers that we met. With a $480 gift, you get our DVD of me in Cuba, my book on equal protection, When They Call You a Terrorist book, Signs of Resistance book, and the Free Speech TV T-shirt. And with $1,000, as I mentioned, come to Portland and I'll hang out with you for a bit of the afternoon, or we can have a nice telephone conversation. Those are the goodies, but the really important thing is we need to hit at least $10,000 for today. Yesterday was the first day we've done that in a big way, I think, in this fund drive. And so please call now. We need your help. We need to keep this network going. Free Speech TV is a vital part of the American media landscape. Call now. Thank you.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome back to our program. Thom Hartmann here with you. And back in the late 1940s, a reporter for the Chicago Sun by the name of Milton Mayer went over to Germany and spent a year there and interviewed 10, quote, good Germans to ask them what the hell happened to your country back in the early 30s. How did this come about? None of these guys had been active, like in the military. They all worked throughout the war. One was a bricklayer, one was a college professor, one was a baker, and I just wanted to read to you very quickly as a setup for our next guest. One of the comments that this was the college professor that Milton Mayer interviewed. The book is called "They Thought They Were Free." It was published in 1953, I think. And what this guy said was, and I quote, "What happened here was the gradual habituation of the people, little by little, to being governed by surprise, to receiving decisions deliberated in secret, to believing that the situation was so complicated that the government had to act on information which the people could not understand, or so dangerous that even if the people could understand it, it could not be released because of national security. The separation of government from people, this widening of the gap, took place so gradually and so insensibly, each step disguised, perhaps not even intentionally, as a temporary emergency measure or associated with true patriotic allegiance or a real social purpose. And all the crises and reforms, and there were real reforms, so occupied the people that they did not see the slow motion underneath, of the whole process of government growing remoter and remoter. To live in this process is absolutely not to be able to notice it. Please try to believe me. Unless one has a much greater degree of political awareness, acuity, than most of us ever had the occasion to develop. Each step was so small, so inconsequential, so well explained, or on occasion regretted, that unless one were detached from the whole process from the beginning, unless one understood what the whole thing was in principle, what these little measures that no patriotic German could resent must someday lead to, no more saw it developing from day to day than a farmer in his field sees the corn growing, but one day it's over his head.
You see, one doesn't see exactly where or how to move. Believe me, this is true. Each act, each occasion is worse than the last, but only a little worse. You wait for the next and the next. You wait for the one great shocking occasion, thinking that others, when such a shock comes, will join you in resisting somehow. You don't want to act or even to talk alone. You don't want to go out of your way to make trouble. Why not? Well, you're not in the habit of doing it. And it's not just fear of standing alone that restrains you. It is also genuine uncertainty. Uncertainty is a very important factor, and instead of decreasing as time goes on, it grows. Outside in the streets, in the general community, everyone seemed happy. One hears no protest. You know, in France or Italy, there's slogans against the government, but not so much in Germany. You speak privately to your colleagues, some of whom certainly feel as you do, and what do they say? They say, it's not so bad, you're seeing things, you're an alarmist. And you are an alarmist. You're saying this must lead to that, but you can't prove it. These are the beginnings, yes, but how do you know for sure when you don't know the end? How do you know or even surmise the end? On the one hand, your enemies, the law, the regime, the party intimidate you. On the other hand, your colleagues poo-poo you as pessimistic or even neurotic. But that one great shocking occasion when tens or hundreds of thousands of people will join you in the streets never comes. That's the difficulty. If the last and worst act of the whole regime had come immediately after the first and smallest, and thousands, yes, millions would have been sufficiently shocked if, let us say, the gassing of the Jews in 43 had come immediately after the German firm stickers on the windows of the non-Jewish shops in 33. But of course, this isn't the way it happens. In between come all the hundreds of little steps, some of them imperceptible, each of them preparing you not to be shocked by the next step. Step B isn't so much worse than C is not so much worse than B, etc. And one day, this is the last paragraph, and one day, too late, your principles, if you were ever sensible of them, all rush in upon you. The burden of self-deception has grown too heavy, and some minor incident. In my case, it was my little boy, hardly more than a baby, saying, Jews, swine, collapses it all at once. And you see that everything has changed, and changed completely under your nose. The world you live in, your nation, your people, is not the world you were in at all. The forms are all there, all untouched, all reassuring, the houses, the shops, the jobs, the mealtimes, the visits, the concerts, the cinema, the holidays. But the spirit, which you never noticed because you made the lifelong mistake of identifying it with the forms, the spirit has changed. And now you live in a nation of hate and fear. And the people who hate and fear do not even know it themselves. When everyone is transformed, no one is transformed. And now you live in a system which rules without responsibility even to God. He was talking about how the Germans were not documenting. Amy Siskind has a new book out. It's called The List, a week-by-week reckoning of Trump's first year, and it is absolutely astonishing. She's on the line with us. Amy, thanks so much for writing this book, and thanks so much for coming on our program.
Thank you, Tom. That was an amazing setup. I learned something from listening to you.
Milton Mayer's book is astonishing, and if you want to find that quote, just Google "They Thought They Were Free" and my name, because I've written about 5 articles using those quotes. So
yes.
Tell us about your book.
Well, I sensed the same thing was happening from the time Trump ran his campaign, that he didn't really have an agenda or political policies that we would typically see from a Republican or Democrat, that he was more using, quote-unquote, a policy like the wall to stoke hatred, and that his MO was more to pick on marginalized communities and women and people with disabilities, and to rally part of our country around that would be loyal to him and had similar leanings. And what I started to notice in the immediate time he took office was the Southern Poverty Law Center tracking the amount of hate crimes. And Trump, in those early weeks, instead of condemning them, said we should give them understanding, just as he did weeks later in Charlottesville. And the first weeks he was attacking the New York Times and the cast of Hamilton. Remember that? Yep. And it just occurred to me, like, these things are not normal. He's trying to silence dissent. He's flaming hatred against others in our country. Even after he won, it doesn't look like he's going to do anything to unify our country, and he has no plan. So I decided shortly after that to start to keep a list of things that were not normal. And in the early weeks, the list was very short. It was 9 items in the first week and then grew to 18 items in the second week, which back then I thought was shocking. Of course, as you fill out the first year of November to November, we reached up to 140, and now we're even beyond that.
Per week.
As he's staffed up his regime, and now we have many hands at work of of deconstructing our democracy and taking away rights and freedoms and taking away protections of our environment and of our citizens. So it is gradual, but the amount in each week is just shocking. And people in the chaos miss things, and they forget. And so I think it's a really important exercise to revisit what we as a country have already lost in the first year.
We're talking with Amy Siskind. She is a former Wall Street executive, currently the president and co-founder of the Agenda, compiler of the Weekly List, now being archived by the Library of Congress. And she's the author of the new book, The List, a week-by-week reckoning of Trump's first year, just published yesterday. The website, theweeklylist.org. You can tweet her at Amy_Siskind, Siskind. Amy, what are the things that really stand out to you over this past year and a few months of Trump's administration?
Well, first off, it happened a lot more quickly, and he's done a lot more to deconstruct our democracy in a short period of time than I thought he would be capable of doing. If you step back and look at Trump, he really has focused on two things. One is enriching himself, and the second is staying in power.
Well, himself and his billionaire buddies, right?
Well, the tax bill, for example, benefited
and
him.
deregulation.
Deregulation is part of staying in power. He has only about half of his senior staff is filled. He hasn't been able to replace a lot of his senior staff. About a third of our executive branch key roles are still on staff. So basically, he's consolidated power into his own hand, or put people in power in the executive branch like DeVos and Pruitt, who are basically deconstructing the agencies they run and working with insiders and lobbyists to peel away regulations that once protected us, our environment, marginalized communities. And it's happened at an alarming rate. I mean, you're talking, some of these laws have been in place for half a century, like Sessions attacking the Civil Rights Act and saying sexual orientation should not be a protected class, or his new FCC chair, in addition to repealing net neutrality, striking a 1970s decision that stopped companies like Sinclair Broadcasting from reaching more than 70% of local markets. So there's so many different ways that he has silenced dissent, taking away our media's accessibility to the regular person, and taking away rights and protections of marginalized communities. It's happened at a shocking rate. And if you're asking me, the one thing that I learned that is the most upsetting is, you take high school history and you learn there are checks and balances, so something like this can never happen. But I think what we've discovered is there are norms but not laws in place to stop something like this from happening, because our Republican Party in control of the House of Senate is doing nothing to stop what's happening, and that's really disappointing to me, beyond what I'm doing as just an American citizen, that people are not putting country first.
Yeah, and that norms versus laws is a pretty important one. We have about a minute and a half left before we're going to hit a hard break here, Amy. What do you see this moving? I mean, I set this up with a German talking about the difference between 1932 and 1942. Do you see us moving in a similar direction? I realize people think that's hyperbolic, but I don't, frankly.
No, I don't either, but I do believe he's not going to make it out of his first term. I think there are three cross currents, and one of the three could take him down. One is the Me Too movement / what's going on with Stormy Daniels now, allegations of payments that weren't declared or threatening. The second would be the Mueller probe, which has a lot of dimensions to it. And the third, which is something I've been harping on and is finally getting attention, is Cambridge Analytica and all the different ways that our election was interfered with. And if you read the list, there are items that people have long forgotten about, like the voter rolls in North Carolina being impacted the day of the election in blue counties, but next door in red counties not. Deep Group Analytics, one of the RNC vendors, putting information on 200 million voters online unprotected, where anybody could have taken it. These are things that just get lost in the chaos. So there's a prospect, I believe, that we didn't have a fair election. But I do believe one of those three things will take him down before he sees the end of his first term.
I hope you're right, because I keep remembering when Hitler was in trouble politically in 1937, he just invaded Poland, and that was, and suddenly his popularity exploded. And anyway, Amy Siskind,
The book is The List, a week-by-week reckoning of Trump's first year. Amy, great work. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Great speaking with you. We'll be right back.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
We'll be back with more of the news of the day and your calls in just a few minutes. And welcome back. David in Montpelier, Vermont, watching us on Free Speech TV. My old, I don't know if I should call it a hometown, but, we lived there for 10 years, loved the city. Hey, David, what's up?
Well, Tom, we miss you a lot. Thanks for the readings today and for Mark. And I just wanted to let you know that I want to resist this census question.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an old protester. I was with Berrigan at Cornell, and I was the first priest to turn in my draft card resisting the war in Vietnam. And we're now into our 12th year with a peace vigil downtown in Montpelier, which you know well.
Mm-hmm.
My plan is to have people all say that we are all illegal immigrants on the question that Jeff Sessions is asking to have to be on the questionnaire. And sort of like we are all Spartacus, we are all Jews. And they basically be willing to flood jails and courtrooms with people who are saying we aren't citizens in sympathy with those that aren't.
I wonder what the consequence of that would be in terms of what the census actually measures.
Well, as a retired minister, I could have our church open up as a sanctuary for anyone who answers wrongly on the, and it was in any way threatened by ICE, that they can have sanctuary at our church.
Right. Right. And do you know, David, what the legal consequences of lying to a census taker are? I'm guessing they're non-existent.
I haven't even I got so angry in the middle of the night seeing that Sessions himself was happy that this was happening. And I'm so sick of xenophobia, and I'm so sick of persecuting and prosecuting the people and breaking the families up. And so I'm trying to work with other churches to do sanctuary stuff here. And I got really mad, and I said, hey, this could be an opportunity to say no to the question, are you a citizen?
Yeah, if that question is on the census, I'm going to refuse to answer it as well as an act of protest.
So that you could either not answer, or you can answer it wrong and say, come and get me. I'm an illegal immigrant. Jail me and put me on trial. I'm ready for you.
The problem with answering it wrong is that if 20 million people said, no, I'm not a citizen, Trump would take that information and say, we've got 20 million non-citizens. We've got a huge problem here.
I think he and Sessions and ICE would become laughing stocks when this protest
they will sell it. They will sell it to the right wing so easily, so fast.
The right wing might. I mean, they've already answered me on Disquis, saying, do that, or if you do it, you have to do it formally. Do it right, as if we're anxious to get rid of you, Mr. Connor.
Yeah. Well, I think refusing to answer the question is essentially it's going to be interpreted by them as a no.
Okay.
But I got to learn more about this. We need to get somebody from, first of all, we need to see what happens with the lawsuits and all that sort of thing. It might
very well be the first time that we've had a chance to do something like getting on the side of those ready to be departed.
Yeah, no, I remember back in the 60s, burning your draft card, which a lot of us did, was something that you could go to jail for. And
I had a deferment. I was a Catholic chaplain at Cornell, so I turned in my deferment, and they reclassified me 1A, which is what exactly I wanted to do, because I wanted to go on trial about the Vietnam War. And when they realized that I'd been already arguing against it all over the country at campuses, they dropped the charges.
That's amazing. That's amazing. David, good on you.
Thanks for the great work. We miss you in Montpelier. Vermont's always ready for you to come for a vacation anytime.
I really should. David, please give my best to anybody who remembers me, and thanks so much for the call.
Okay, thank you, Tom.
Great talking with you today. Thank you so much. Yeah, thanks for watching Free Speech TV. We'll be back. It's 22 minutes and 50 seconds past the hour. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. A couple economy things I wanted to talk with you about, and then we'll pick up your calls here after the bottom of the hour. The
The first is a piece from thinkprogress.org by Rebecca Entralgo. When it printed, it says her name is in Rebecca Entralgo Twitter, but I suspect it was, the word Twitter was there so you could tweet her article. But anyway, it's titled Republicans Propose a Balanced Budget Amendment After Voting for $1 trillion legislation. She writes, congressional Republicans are planning to push a balanced budget amendment when they return from recess in April, Politico reported on Wednesday. Politico's Jake Sherman, Anna Palmer, and Daniel Lippman wrote, it's almost election season, and it would be helpful if GOP lawmakers could go home and be able to say they voted to support balancing the federal budget, even though they voted to boost discretionary spending by a ton. Right. And then they're going to have the second round of tax cuts to make the tax cuts for billionaires permanent because they're going to go away in 8 years, whereas the tax cuts for the corporations are already permanent. So, number one, what this is all about, this balanced budget legislation, this is on behalf of Wall Street. Wall Street is very upset about the fact that you can put your savings with the federal government right now and earn at about the same as you can earn with any bank. Actually, you'd earn more than I'm earning on my checkings or savings accounts right now, simply by buying Treasury bills. Now, this Treasury bill is government debt, right? But when you buy one, the government pays you interest and eventually pays you the money back, just like if you put the money in a CD or in a savings account. And there's almost $20 trillion. It's about $17 trillion if you take out the money that the government owes itself, the Social Security Trust Fund, stuff like that. But there's, over $20 trillion, or in the neighborhood of $17 trillion there, that Wall Street is looking at saying, if the government had a balanced budget requirement, in other words, the government no longer had a national debt, then there would be no government place where you could safely put your money. So people would be forced to put their money in Citibank or Wells Fargo or Bank of America or whatever. And so this is something that the corporate, the politicians who are owned by the banks, and frankly in both parties, but particularly the Republican Party, have been pushing for forever. And that's why. It's a real simple equation. It's all about Wall Street wanting to be the ones who sell debt. Wall Street wants to be the one who is going to say, hey, if you got savings and you want to store them in a place that's safe, give them to us, Wells Fargo, rather than put them with the Treasury, number one. Number two, I wanted to share with you something. The Daily Fennec is the newsletter that comes out every single day that you get when you subscribe to the ADEN forecast, which is one of the underwriters of our program. ADEN forecast is, or ADEN forecast is, it's written by Chuck Butler. And Chuck writes in today's newsletter something that really, I've said this on the air before. I know this to be the case, and yet, seeing it written down is a little shocking. He says, basically, we're looking at the high probability that we could see a credit default coming. Now, remember, 2007, what precipitated that crisis was basically a credit default in the housing market. He says, and here's why. Basically, corporate bond issuers took advantage of the Fed's zero-rate circus and issued bonds by the boatloads. But it's my opinion that those corporations didn't use the funds generated by bond sales to increase their business like corporations have done before. Instead, those corporations took the bond proceeds and bought their own stock, buybacks, to prop up their stock prices. So there's nothing in the till to pay off these bonds. And as they come due, they'll have to be refinanced, and, thus it's going to blow up. I got a little more on this.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
Just a minute or so more on this that I will share with you after the break that also gets to the yield curve, and then we'll pick up your phone calls. Stick around. Fund drive, membership drive, both, all of the above. There's only 2 days left. Well, 3 days left, I guess. Today is Wednesday, and then Thursday and Friday. So yesterday we had a great day. The matching grants, so many of you stepped up and said, yes, I'd love to see my gift doubled, that we hit our $15,000 goal, and it got matched. And so now we're only, for the 3-week period, the whole 3-week period, we're only about $10,000 or $15,000 down.
but we only have 3 days left, and we have to hit $10,000 each one of those 3 days, plus, make up what little is left over from yesterday's really good day. So please don't stop. We don't have the matching grants anymore, but still, it's really important. If you haven't yet called Free Speech TV to join, to participate, we need to hit these levels, or the network starts to flounder. It's just that simple. And if we can hit these goals, in fact, if we can beat these goals, which has always been my goal, and we've done it in previous years. This year is a tough one. I'm guessing a lot of people are contributing to political campaigns. We saw the same thing in the one fund drive just before the last, the elections in 2016. But Free Speech TV is important too. And in fact, Free Speech TV is supporting the campaigns, indirectly by telling the truth on the air about what's going on, indirectly supporting the campaigns of, progressive candidates all across the country. So please consider a contribution to Free Speech TV now if you haven't already. 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. Tip of the hat to Mark B. from San Jose yesterday, who made a $1,000 gift. Free Speech, a number of people who've made the $1,000 gifts, which is where, come to Portland and I'll take you to lunch, have said, rather than flying to Portland and going through all the expense and hassle of that, and, for an hour and a half with Tom, half hour in the studio and an hour of lunch, I'd rather just talk to him on the phone. And so Free Speech has said, okay, cool, you can have a half hour with Tom on the phone. And I did that with 2 of our $1,000 donors yesterday who preferred to talk to me on the phone instead of coming here. And it had some fascinating conversations. And I actually, one of our donors who wanted to have a phone conversation with me is like really deep in the whole thing with what's going on with vaccines and the peanut oil that they're adding to vaccines, or that they're using to somehow stimulate the immune system. And it appears that this is causing the epidemic of peanut allergies in the United States. They're using sesame oil in Israel, and now they're getting sesame allergies in Israel. It's real interesting stuff. So I got to dig into that. But in any case, I learned from these. They're great. So that's an option on those. But with a $30 gift, you get your choice of the Free Speech TV blue logo bumper sticker with the website and the logo, or the black "This is not normal" bumper sticker, or the "Elect a Clown, Expect a Circus" bumper sticker, or the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker with a $30 gift. With a $60 gift, which could be $5 a month for a year, you get a lapel pin that says "Love Conquers Hate" by the Human Rights Campaign, the Free Speech TV blue grocery bag, and the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. With a $72 gift, you get all 4 of those bumper stickers that I mentioned, the Free Speech TV logo, "This is not normal," "Elect a Clown, Expect a Circus," and Thom Hartmann University. With a $120 gift, which could be $10 a month for a year, you get my book, Unequal Protection, autographed by the author. And you get an autographed photo that Louise took of me when we were in Havana, Cuba, or Cuba, I guess, is how it's correctly, in any case, in Cuba last month with Code Pink. That was a wonderful trip, by the way, and I met some really, really great people that I hope to keep in touch with and hope to see on future trips. With a $240 gift, you get the Free Speech TV t-shirt. That's small, medium, large, or extra large. It says "Building a Just World" on the front and "Standing in Unity" on the back. You get the Free Speech with this freespeechtv.org print on the back. You get the "Love Conquers Hate" lapel pin from the Human Rights Campaign. You get an autographed copy of my book, Unequal Protection, and you get Bonnie Siegler's book, Signs of Resistance, A Visual History of Protest in America. With a $360 gift, you also get the photo of me in Cuba, autographed. You get my autographed book, Unequal Protection. You get the book by Patrice Kahn-Kuhlers, When They Call You a Terrorist, Lives of Black Lives Matters. You get the book by Bonnie Siegler, Signs of Resistance, A Visual History of Protest in America. You get a 1-year subscription to our podcasts, and our podcasts are great. You can listen to the show anytime, anywhere, commercial, and we take all the commercials and everything. You get 4 bumper stickers, all 4 bumper stickers that we met. With a $480 gift, you get our DVD of me in Cuba, my book, Unequal Protection, When They Call You a Terrorist book, Signs of Resistance book, and the Free Speech TV T-shirt. And with $1,000, as I mentioned, come to Portland and I'll hang out with you for a bit of the afternoon, or we can have a nice telephone conversation. Those are the goodies, but the really important thing is we need to hit at least $10,000 for today. Yesterday was the first day we've done that in a big way, I think, in this fund drive. And so please call now. We need your help. We need to keep this network going. Free Speech TV is a vital part of the American media landscape. Call now. Thank you. Welcome back to the Thom Hartmann Program, and I was talking about the economy. Let me just wrap this up. I was quoting, first of all, from the Daily Pfennig, the newsletter that comes with an Aid and Forecast subscription. The Aid and Forecast is one of the underwriters of our program, and they basically they do a weekly newsletter on investment advice for, everybody, I guess. And in fact, the last one, there was, they had a specific suggestion, and they said, but if you're a boomer and you're about to retire, probably you should use this strategy, which I thought was fascinating. But anyhow, Chuck in the Daily Pfennig is pointing out that corporations, since the Fed's interest rates were so low, that corporations have been borrowing massive amounts of money at very low interest rates. And before the this Reaganism era, when corporations borrowed money, they used it to build factories or expand marketing or do things that would build their business. But Chuck points out correctly that they're not doing that. They're borrowing money and using it to buy back their own stock, which inflates the value of the stock. As you take stock out of the marketplace, the price per share goes up, even though the value of the company doesn't, because you have fewer shares in circulation. You can do the math on that. So that's, it's a scam. It's a game. And they did the same thing with the money from the tax break. About 80% of that money that corporations got is going to buying back their shares. Why? Because the senior executives are compensated in stock. So if their stock price goes up, their compensation goes up. And also they pay, a lower tax rate, a capital gains rate on that. So it's even better for them. And so he said, if the interest rates go up, as the Fed is raising interest rates, they're going to have to refinance these loans because they can't pay them off because the companies have not expanded. They've merely jacked up their stock price. And that will bring about a credit crash, a credit disaster, which is, like I said, what we saw in 2007. It's what we saw in 1929, by the way. It was the same thing, only at that time it was people who had borrowed money to buy stocks instead of to buy houses. It was people who borrowed money to buy houses in 2007 that took it down. Now it's people who are borrowing for student loans, for credit card debt, and houses and cars. I mean, all these things are at risk. And corporations who borrowed massively to simply inflate their own stock price. So there's that. And then the third one I wanted to share with you that has to do with the economy is from today's Financial Times. And this is pretty shocking. The headline is U.S. Treasury yield curve flattens to 10.5-year low. Let me read you the last sentence of the article first. A flattening yield curve is often regarded as a predictor of a recession. Okay, so with that in mind, listen to the first sentence of the article. The difference between short-dated and long-dated U.S. Treasury yields narrowed to a level last seen in 2007 on Wednesday, that would be today, as investors weighed the prospect of a quicker pace of interest rate increases with rising uncertainties for the outlook of global growth. The difference between the 2- and 10-year yields, and then they go through the how many basis points, all that stuff. Both are now at their lowest level since October 2007. And then they add, and this is all because of the Republican tax scam, the GOP tax scam, where they borrowed $5 trillion, well, they borrowed $1.5 trillion, and they're cutting $5 trillion, it's a $5 trillion thing over a 10-year period, but they're having to borrow $1.5 trillion, and they also cut taxes. And so this week, the government had to borrow, I believe it was $300 billion that they were not expecting to have to borrow. I'll have to go back and look at the number. Don't take that number to the bank. But in any case, the government had to borrow a large amount of money that they hadn't expected to have to borrow simply because the tax cut had reduced federal revenues. So then the Financial Times, referring to that, everybody reading the Times, understands this stuff. Presumably that's why they read the Financial Times. But the average person has no clue. The move has been exacerbated by the bumper issuance of U.S. government bonds this week.
which is, of course, how the government borrows money to loan that or to give that money as tax breaks to the Koch brothers and the other morbidly rich billionaires. So that's what's going on. Heads up. And then as David Stockman pointed out on this program a couple of weeks ago, on October 1st, the government has to borrow $1.2 trillion. I mean, right now they're just borrowing to cover the budget shortfall because of the tax break. On October 1st, they have to borrow the $1.2 trillion to pay back that money that is being given in this first year to the Kochs and the Waltons and all the other billionaire families in America. And that, in all probability, is going to precipitate something really, really ugly. Rick in Cartersville, Georgia. Hey, Rick, thanks for watching the program. What's on your mind?
Yes. Tom, I know that from looking at some of the things that back last fall that the House of Representatives passed a 10-year budget. It went on to the Senate with some amendments. They passed a 10-year budget. It went back to the House, and it's supposedly that the House was going to make something other that was a mirror image of the Senate. It was just to pass the Senate resolution on the budget. But yet, last time I checked on the congressional website, that it said that they were that the thing was trying to be resolved between the two houses,
right.
And that what I wanted to know was what was the item that caused the House Republicans, and I'm assuming it's the crazies out of the Republican Party.
The Cokehead Caucus, also known as the Freedom Caucus. Yeah.
Right, the remnants of the Joe Pine show.
Yeah.
That they apparently, I guess, didn't go along with something. But what I would like to find out is what was the issue and what was had.
Yeah. Rick, I don't know the answer to your question. I'm sorry, I don't know what it is. My guess would be that it probably has to do with domestic spending. It probably has to do with something like Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, something like that. But I frankly, where you've got, right-wingers who just want to blow the thing up, and then you've got moderate Republicans who, largely agree with Democrats. It's not a lot of them, but, who largely agree with Democrats that this is the third rail, you shouldn't mess with it. But the reason why they do 10 years, and this is, they just passed a one-year budget just right. Last week. The reason they do a 10-year budget and not an 11-year budget or a 20-year budget or whatever, and frankly, I think a 5-year budget or even a 2-year budget is probably more realistic because things change, right? You get a recession, you get a really good times, whatever, things change. But the reason they do a 10-year budget is because budget reconciliation is limited to 10 years. So if you do, and reconciliation requires, you can only do reconciliation once a year, and it cannot be filibustered. That's the whole upside to budget reconciliation, which means that they can pass it with 50 votes in the Senate plus Mike Pence, as the tiebreaker. And the other thing about a 10-year budget is that you can attach things to budget reconciliation that have nothing to do with the budget, and then they get passed only for 10 years, but they get passed. And this is how Bill Clinton got gun control done in the assault weapons ban done in 1996 or 1995, one or the other, was by attaching it to a 10-year spending bill. And, that was passed by reconciliation, and that's why it expired in 2005. And so what the Republicans are looking at, in all probability, is, and in fact, this may well be what the fights are about, Rick, and again, I'm sorry I don't know the details, would be what can we attach to this budget? Can we attach an abortion ban to this budget? Can we attach, the wall to this budget? Can we attach, extra funding for ICE to this budget? Can we attach, new school books that replace George Washington with Rush Limbaugh to this budget? I mean, who knows what kind of wacky stuff that they're going to come up with that it could be. But yeah, I'll let me look into it, and I'll try to get back with you. Rick, good question. Thank you for the call. Cheryl, I don't have a city or state for you. Where are you calling from?
Georgia.
Oh, great. Okay, so what's on your mind?
I was calling about the census and whether you have to answer or not.
Right.
Okay, well, I was contacted at the end of 2015, beginning of 2016, for something called, from the Census Bureau, for something called the American Community Survey. that I had never heard of, but said I had to answer it. And I usually support the regular census that you have about 10 questions, but this was something I got that said I had to answer, and that there was a penalty of law. And so I went online to look up, and I was very disturbed because it's very detailed, what I considered invasive questions.
Mm-hmm.
And so I called my brother-in-law. He's a libertarian. And he said, well, I would just answer the questions I feel like answering, don't do the rest. But I went on and looked up Google and said, what happens if I don't?
Mm-hmm.
And it says basically nothing.
Right.
They
The law does say you have to answer the census questions, but I don't know of anybody who's ever been prosecuted for not doing so. And
I didn't. And so I'm still here and nothing happened to me.
Okay, well, that's good news. And apropos of the conversation that we had with the Catholic priest who is recommending that people answer the citizenship question if it appears on the census with a no, I'm not a citizen. I think that's dangerous, frankly, because Trump would use that to crank up his base and to get the Republicans in Congress to pass legislation to double the budget of ICE and all kinds of stuff. Cut funding to places that have large Hispanic communities and whatnot. On the other hand, though, I think that simply not answering that question would be seen as a protest and probably couldn't be used that way by Trump. So, we'll see where it goes. But because you've got half a dozen or a dozen states right now already suing to stop this question, in addition to a couple of public interest groups. Cheryl, thanks for sharing your story with us, and thanks for listening to the program. Appreciate the call. We'll be back. It's coming up on 15 minutes before the hour. Stick around.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
We'll be back. We're going to check in with Talk Media News in just a few minutes. Stick around. Welcome back. Let's see here. Carol in Murrells Inlet, South Carolina. Hey, Carol, what's on your mind today?
Yeah, hi, Tom. I'm also calling about the census.
Mm-hmm.
I worked 1990 in PG County, Maryland as a crew leader.
Mm-hmm.
And then 2000, I worked in mostly Fulton County, Georgia, also as a crew leader, but I worked in the year prior. A lot of advanced work is done to identify where the homeless population tends to live or congregate, et cetera, and also Hispanic.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I didn't work 2000 because of health issues. Okay, in the 20 years, I noticed the questions became more invasive. Now, mind you, the information is sold to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, and numerous commercial entities can buy the data. So it gets more into, in the 20-year period, into asking about household income and all that. The most recent one had a couple of questions having to do with race, which was interesting. One was about race, and one was about ethnicity. So there were actually two different questions. I don't know how they're going to handle it in this next one, but I thought that was interesting. Whenever there's questions about race and they have other, I always put human race, and I do that on hospital applications and everything else.
Yeah.
But as far as I agree with what you just said about backfiring, and that the administration currently in the White House could use a against poor or blue-leaning communities or even states, because, well, that scares me. I would prefer people not answer that citizenship question at all, and I hope it does, go into the courts and all the states that are already talking about it. That was not on it last time. I think it's wrong. You're supposed to be doing a count of everybody in this country, not whether they're a citizen or not. So I think it's to strike fear into a certain, segment of the population.
Right.
So I intend to not answer it myself.
I'm pretty sure, Carol, the only place in the Constitution where it uses the word citizen is when it says that the President of the United States and people running for Congress have to be citizens. Everywhere else it uses the word person. All people in the United States, whether they're citizens or not, whether they're immigrants or not, whether they're even here legally or illegally, are entitled to the protections of the Bill of Rights and the rest of the Constitution. The founders are clear about that.
Exactly. And the thing is that resources are going to be pulled out of places where, I mean, for example, the homeless population, there are a lot of people who are not citizens. One of the homeless that I became friends with actually in Atlanta has been here for decades, but he was never able to even get a green card. He's from Ghana. And I'm afraid that they're just not going to answer after all these years. And I really tried hard to get the homeless to answer in Atlanta because they are so underrepresented and the resources are horrible. So many more people have become homeless in recent years. Affordable housing in Atlanta got destroyed, and they put in these live, work, play, high-end, I don't know what they are, but, people of means can live there. And one of our early jobs was to actually strike the records. I mean, it even made me cry at the time of the names of people who no longer were in buildings that had been, seen the wrecking ball, basically.
Yeah.
So we have to be really, really careful because, if we can see everything backfire and resources be pulled. So just don't answer it. There's no penalty for not answering questions on there.
Cool. Thank you, Carol, and thanks for the voice of wisdom and experience. I really appreciate it. And thank you for watching Free Speech TV. We'll be right back. Ellen Ratner will be with us with Talk Media News. Stick around. With Talk Media News and find out what's going on in the world today. This report brought to you by goatsfortheoldgoat.com and Ellen Ratner's new book, Loving What You Do. And on the line with us, the founder of goatsfortheoldgoat.com. As I recall, it was celebrating your 60th birthday, wasn't it, Ellen, when you rolled that thing?
It was celebrating my 60th birthday, and this is our 10th anniversary of you and I going to South Sudan. And, of course, because of Easter and Passover, it's a great time to purchase a partial goat or a full goat for somebody. We're the only animal group that gives people a picture of the recipient and their goat so they know where their money's going. Goats, plural, for theoldgoat.com. So that's my pitch. And now I'll tell you some other interesting news. Okay. This morning, the president tweeted about the Second Amendment. Now, former Justice Stevens, who retired from the Supreme Court, said the Second Amendment ought to go away, that its time had come and passed. And what people don't realize is it says a well-regulated militia, comma. And first of all, we don't have any well-regulated militias anymore. And secondly, the right to bear arms, does that mean that you have a right to bear a nuclear arm? I mean, it's very unclear in terms of that, and people could be doing really bad things.
Yeah, in the Heller decision, they talked about weapons that could be carried. But that would, in this day and age, that would include shoulder-fired surface-to-air missiles. I mean, it's like
a lot of things.
So
exactly.
yeah. I don't think it's necessary to repeal the Second Amendment. I think this can be done even within the constraints of Heller. But in any case, what else is going on, Ellen?
Okay, so it looks like Mark Zuckerberg is going to testify before the House. He has turned down the invitation to, or maybe it wasn't an invitation, to testify before the Great Britain, which of course has very different kinds of privacy laws than we have. But he is going to testify before the House. Question is whether the Senate wants him. Of course, they do want him, etc. Now, Dr. Nasser, who you know was the Olympian doctor, it turns out that his boss was complicit in a lot of this stuff and, in fact, had a video from Dr. Nasser on his computer inappropriately touching a patient. So, I mean, it gets crazier and crazier.
Yeah.
All right. 2 former Surgeon Generals have now, Jocelyn Elders and Dr. David Satcher, have written about the transgender troops. They said that there has been no evidence on a medical basis that transgender troops are any less able to serve, and they are very, very opposed to it.
That's great.
Interesting. Now, 22 women senators, all the women, bipartisan, want an up-to-date law on sexual harassment for Congress. They have written a letter to both Chuck Schumer on the Democratic side and to the head of the
Mitch McConnell?
Republican, Mitch McConnell. That's right, Senator McConnell. And they are saying that they want to update the law on sexual harassment.
That's great.
Also, the Sierra Club bought some ads, believe it or not, on Fox and Friends. They also bought them on MSNBC this morning, but they're going to. They went on this morning, Thursday and Friday. Well, they will also go on, and they want to get rid of Scott Pruitt. So and Fox sold them the ads. So
Wow.
there you go.
That's new. I mean, there have been a couple of attempts. What's his name? Tom Steyer has tried to buy time on Fox for his, time, move to impeach, need to impeach.org or .com, whatever it is. And they've refused to sell him the ads. So that's a good sign.
Well, that's really interesting. Yes. Okay. So the U.S. economy grew by 2.9% at the end of the last quarter in 2017. That's higher than the 2.5% prediction. However, CNBC did a poll and found that just 32% of the public reports having more take-home pay because of the tax cuts, and 48% of the Trump supporters, that includes them, and 35% of the middle class. So people are not seeing this great economy show up in their paychecks. Now, the president is scheduled to go to Ohio tomorrow to talk about infrastructure and infrastructure jobs. But again, are people going to see it in their paychecks? And that's the big issue at this point.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so now this is very interesting. Kim Jong-un, who is the leader of North Korea, his train was spotted going into China. Well, it is true that China actually released a photo of him and the Chinese president shaking hands, and so he actually went to China yesterday. And China is claiming, after speaking to President Trump, that they are going to go ahead with this summit meeting. However, there is now a satellite image that shows North Korea has a new nuclear reactor, and it appears to be coming online. Now, North Korea is saying that this reactor is intended to produce only electricity for civilian use. But this new reactor can also make plutonium, and that's one of the main fuels used in nuclear arms. And they're saying that the image suggests that preliminary testing may have begun at the new reactor. The plant is called the Experimental Light Water Reactor.
Wow.
And the plant could potentially produce 20 kilograms of weapons-grade plutonium each year, and that would be more than 4 times what is currently being produced at the nuclear reactor. So there you have it.
Yeah, that's amazing. Ellen Ratner with Talk Media News, goatsfortheoldgoat.com, and Loving What You Do, the new book. Ellen, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a great afternoon. We'll be back with more of the program right after this. In fact, Tim DeChristopher is going to talk. Amazing victory in court for the environment. We'll talk about that right after the news.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
The Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by the Aiden Forecast, an investment newsletter with weekly updates of leading market indicators and a monthly deep dive into what the details of the economy and the markets mean for investors and retirees. On the web at aidenmarkets.com.
Wines have some of the highest pesticide levels in our food chain. This hour brought to you by ecowine.com. Pesticide-free wines, organic wines, imported from France by the Organic Wine Company, ecowine.com.
Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by Super Beets. Super Beets are sourced from non-GMO beets, and they're packed with dietary nitrates, helping to produce nitric oxide for more energy, stamina, and support for healthy blood pressure levels naturally. For more information, call 800-223-8242
or visit tomsbeets.com.
Fund drive, membership drive, both, all of the above. This day, there's only 2 days left. Well, 3 days left, I guess. Today is Wednesday, and then Thursday and Friday. So yesterday we had a great day. The matching grants, so many of you stepped up and said, yes, I'd love to see my gift doubled, that we hit our $15,000 goal, and it got matched. And so now we're only, for the 3-week period, the whole 3-week period, we're only about $10,000 or $15,000 down, but we only have 3 days left, and we have to hit $10,000 each one of those 3 days, plus, make up what little is left over from yesterday's really good day. So please don't stop. We don't have the matching grants anymore, but still, it's really important. If you haven't yet called Free Speech TV to join, to participate, we need to hit these levels, or the network starts to flounder. It's just that simple. And if we can hit these goals, in fact, if we can beat these goals, which has always been my goal, and we've done it in previous years. This year is a tough one. I'm guessing a lot of people are contributing to political campaigns. We saw the same thing in the one fund drive just before the last, the elections in 2016. But Free Speech TV is important too. And in fact, Free Speech TV is supporting the campaigns, indirectly by telling the truth on the air about what's going on, indirectly supporting the campaigns of, progressive candidates all across the country. So please consider a contribution to Free Speech TV now if you haven't already. 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. Tip of the hat to Mark B. from San Jose yesterday, who made a $1,000 gift. Free Speech, a number of people who've made the $1,000 gifts, which is where, come to Portland and I'll take you to lunch, have said, rather than flying to Portland and going through all the expense and hassle of that, and for an hour and a half with Tom, half hour in the studio and an hour lunch, I'd rather just talk to him on the phone. And so Free Speech has said, okay, cool, you can have a half hour with Tom on the phone. And I did that with 2 of our $1,000 donors yesterday who preferred to talk to me on the phone instead of coming here. And it had some fascinating conversations. And I actually, one of our donors who wanted to have a phone conversation with me is like really deep in the whole thing with what's going on with vaccines and the peanut oil that they're adding to vaccines, or that they're using to somehow stimulate the immune system. And it appears that this is causing the epidemic of peanut allergies in the United States. They're using sesame oil in Israel, and now they're getting sesame allergies in Israel. It's real interesting stuff. So I got to dig into that. But in any case, I learned from these. They're great. So that's an option on those. But with a $30 gift, you get your choice of the Free Speech TV blue logo bumper sticker with the website and the logo, or the black "This Is Not Normal" bumper sticker, or the "Elect a Clown, Expect a Circus" bumper sticker, or the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker with a $30 gift. With the $60 gift, which could be $5 a month for a year, you get a lapel pin that says "Love Conquers Hate" by the Human Rights Campaign, the Free Speech TV blue grocery bag, and the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. With a $72 gift, you get all 4 of those bumper stickers that I mentioned, the Free Speech TV logo, "This Is Not Normal," "Elect a Clown, Expect a Circus," and Thom Hartmann University. With a $120 gift, which could be $10 a month for a year, you get my book, Unequal Protection, autographed by the author, And you get an autographed photo that Louise took of me when we were in Havana, Cuba, or Cuba, I guess, is how it's correctly pronounced. In any case, in Cuba last month with Code Pink. That was a wonderful trip, by the way, and I met some really, really great people that I hope to keep in touch with and hope to see on future trips. With a $240 gift, you get the Free Speech TV T-shirt. That's small, medium, large, or extra large. It says "Building a Just World" on the front and "Standing in Unity" on the back. You get the Free Speech with this freespeechtv.org print on the back. You get the Love Conquers Hate lapel pin from the Human Rights Campaign. You get an autographed copy of my book on equal protection, and you get Bonnie Siegler's book, Signs of Resistance, A Visual History of Protest in America. With a $360 gift, you also get the photo of me in Cuba, autographed. You get my autographed book on equal protection. You get the book by Patrice Kahn-Coulers, When They Call You a Terrorist, Lives of Black Lives Matters. You get the book by Bonnie Siegler, Signs of Resistance, A Visual History of Protest in America. You get a one-year subscription to our podcasts, and our podcasts are great. You can listen to the show anytime, anywhere, commercial, and there's no, we take all the commercials and everything. You get 4 bumper stickers, all 4 bumper stickers. With a $480 gift, you get our DVD of me in Cuba, my book on equal protection, When They Call You a Terrorist book, Signs of Resistance book, and the Free Speech TV T-shirt. And with $1,000, as I mentioned, come to Portland and I'll hang out with you for a bit of the afternoon, or we can have a nice telephone conversation. Those are the goodies, but the really important thing is we need to hit at least $10,000 for today. Yesterday was the first day we've done that in a big way, I think, in this fund drive. And so please call now. We need your help. We need to keep this network going. Free Speech TV is a vital part of the American media landscape. Call now. Thank you.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
On the line with us is Tim DeChristopher. He is a climate activist and defendant in the hashtag climate trial. His website, timdechristopher, dechristopher.org, and also climatedisobedience.org. You can tweet him at DeChristopher and at climatedisobey. Tim, welcome to the program.
Hi, Tom. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you on. Yeah, it's you guys just had a judgment. Tell us what led up to it, and tell us what happened.
Yeah, so this trial was about the West Roxbury pipeline resistance, which was a sustained campaign of resistance against the frack gas pipeline going through the West Roxbury neighborhood of Boston. Over the course of 2015 and 2016, there was a lot of resistance actions, dozens and dozens of protests and civil disobedience actions. Over 200 people, or around 200 people, were arrested over the course of that campaign. And over the course of that, there were a group of us that decided that we wanted to not take the plea bargains that were offered to us and the settlements, and instead try to take our cases to trial. And so we worked our case through the court system over the past.
What were you charged with?
Almost 2 years now. We were charged with trespass, resisting arrest, and disturbing the peace.
Okay.
And over the course of those hearings, the resisting arrest charges were dropped because there was no evidence for that. And so we were moving to trial, hoping to put on what's called the necessity defense, the argument that we had a necessity to act to prevent greater harm. And I think we had about as strong of a case as we could have on that. And then the week before trial, just last week, the prosecutor announced that they were dropping the charges to civil infractions, which is more like the realm of a speeding ticket, which meant that we no longer had the opportunity to have a jury trial. We could no longer call the expert witnesses we were expecting to. And so we were incredibly constricted, and we didn't really know what to expect going into court yesterday. But we asked the judge to still give us a hearing on this case as it remained. So there were 13 of us as defendants, and each one of us spoke for a couple minutes, and basically made a extremely compressed version of the necessity defense, which we had intended to put on over the course of a week with ample information, and we made it as concise as possible. And at the end of that, the judge ruled in our favor and acquitted us based on the necessity defense, and made it clear that she was making that ruling by reason of necessity.
Now that's remarkable. We're talking to Tim DeChristopher, a climate activist and a defendant in the hashtag climate trial in Roxbury, Boston area, Massachusetts. Tim, can you summarize your defense for us?
Sure. You know, the necessity defense requires that you're acting to prevent an imminent harm, that harm is less than whatever you do to try to stop it. It requires that you have a lack of reasonable alternatives or legal alternatives, and it requires a reasonable expectation that your actions can actually prevent the harm in question. And so our case basically boiled down to the fact that this fracked gas pipeline represented an imminent harm. Part of that imminent harm would be if the pipeline didn't work as intended and there was a catastrophic explosion or something like that, which was fairly likely because it ran 100 yards from an active quarry where they were still blasting with dynamite, and the ground shook there every day or so. But even more significant was the very imminent harm that would result if the pipeline did work as intended and continued to allow the expansion of fracking in places like Pennsylvania and West Virginia and Ohio, and exacerbate the extreme harms that are occurring there, and continue to allow natural gas to flow into power plants or homes where it's going to be burned and exacerbate the climate crisis. Those are guaranteed harms that are already underway.
And the judge acknowledged those?
Yes.
Wow.
The judge acknowledged that harm, and we also had a strong case that both in this particular pipeline and in the more general fight against climate change, folks really have pursued every reasonable option to affect change within the lawful structures that are available to us. And in this particular case with this pipeline, every elected official that represented that community of Boston, with the exception of their governor, opposed this pipeline. The Boston City Council unanimously opposed it. The mayor of Boston got the city to sue the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission to try to stop it. And so we actually had a Boston City councilor that was ready to take the stand in our defense to testify that they had done everything they could within the system to try to stop it, and that there was nothing that they could do because the control of our government by the fossil fuel industry is so overwhelming that there's nothing a municipality can do within the legal system to try to prevent fossil fuel infrastructure.
So you have successfully prevented yourself from going to jail or paying fines or anything like that. Did you guys stop the pipeline, or has it been installed, or what's the status of that?
No, the pipeline went through. The pipeline is now flowing. The city still has an ongoing lawsuit against the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, trying to get them to shut it off. But that's obviously a very uphill battle.
Right.
And so our final piece of that defense about the reasonable expectation that we could win, really boiled down to an argument about the power of social movements and the power of civil disobedience and the power of a sustained local resistance campaign like this that we have seen have a lot of impacts. We've seen it stop pipelines in other places. While this fight was going on in the Boston area, at the same time, Kinder Morgan, another pipeline company on the western side of Massachusetts, canceled their plans for another pipeline while they were watching the sustained resistance over in Boston. And as we've seen a lot of natural gas companies and pipeline companies make very clear statements over the past few months to their shareholders and their industry groups that they can't put in any new infrastructure without a really high level of resistance from local communities, that every single project is being fought right now. And I think that's a testament to the strength of the climate movement right now.
Yeah, it really is, and it's extraordinary.
I'm guessing probably since this trial was not, you know, they ended up dropping the major charges against you, and so you were basically, you know, adjudicating traffic tickets or the equivalent thereof. That this is not the sort of thing that anybody's going to take to a higher court or appeal to try and overturn, you know, to try and put you back in a position of being a defendant.
No, I'd say there's almost no chance of that. You know, the prosecution dropped the charges because they didn't want to adjudicate this because they didn't have much of an interest here. They didn't see a path that was actually a winning situation for them.
Right.
You know, and so we were basically just using whatever opportunity we had within the system to try to make as positive an outcome as we could. Obviously, we would have liked a more intensive trial, and for us, it was a big disappointment that they dropped the charges.
Yeah.
But you know, we recognized that this group of defendants that we had on this case was a group of mostly white activists that had the degree of privilege within our legal system to hold our ground in a different way than a lot of the people who are impacted by our legal system. And so we felt like because of that privilege, we had sort of had an obligation to use whatever opportunity we could to push back
and a fine job you did. Tim,
yeah.
we got to bail here, but Tim DeChristopher, you can timdechristopher.org, climatedisobedience.org, at Climate Disobey and at DeChristopher. Thank you, Tim.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
We'll be back with more of the news of the day and your calls right after this. Stick around. And welcome back. Tina in Grand Merrills, Minnesota. Hey, Tina, what's on your mind today?
Hi, it's Grand Marais.
Grand Marais, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm calling because one of the things that Bernie Sanders used in his campaign that has not taken root and was a common political ploy was that we need to have a higher progressive tax.
Right, to get the budget, to get the annual deficit down, even though we do. Yeah, I'm with
thinking if they pass that balanced budget amendment, that they might actually be forced to have a progressive tax.
Well, as long as they're Republicans, what they'll do is they'll say, we have to have a balanced budget, therefore we're going to cut Medicare by 20%, and we're going to cut Social Security by half. I mean, Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell have both already said that.
Yes, and I've heard him say that, but I don't understand why nobody is standing up for a more progressive tax.
Yeah, I don't either. I am, and I do regularly on this program. We need to roll back the Reagan tax cuts. We need to go back to a 74% top marginal tax rate. It needs to be obviously inflation adjusted to today, but we had an economy that really worked between 1935 and 1981. And then, Reagan came in and flipped our economic assumptions upside down. Even flipping upside down economic realities that were acknowledged not just by Adam Smith in 1776 or David Ricardo in 1820, but by Aristotle 3,000 years ago. I mean, just basic economics that demand drives economies. And suddenly it was like, oh no, supply drives economies. Which is total BS, and now we've, a 35-year experiment has proved it's total BS. Not just at the federal level. You had Sam Brownback trying it in Kansas and destroying the state there. So yeah,
why don't people have the interest or passion or backbone to talk about it?
Well, the problem is
are elected.
The problem is the way that Republicans demagogue the issue. The minute that a Democrat says, yes, we should raise taxes on billionaires, the Republicans will go, he wants to raise your taxes. And it migrates through Fox News and through right-wing hate radio, and there's this huge right-wing infrastructure, media infrastructure, devoted to keeping people in the dark about the reality of what's going on and promoting actual fantasies and lies, which they do literally every day. MediaMatters.org does a great job of calling out Fox on this, but what's going on in right-wing hate radio is far worse, and it's never documented to the best of my knowledge. There's no website that keeps track of it. And that's why Democrats are cowering around this, is because they know that the corporate media will pick this up and run with it, because the corporate media is owned by billionaires and multimillionaires and pretty much anybody on one of the big networks, ABC, NBC, CBS, MSNBC, CNN. If they're on television, they're making at least $1 million a year, and that's that puts them in the top 1% too. And so you get this consensus, this neoliberal consensus across the media. And, if a Democrat starts talking about raising taxes on rich people, that's those people on TV. They don't like that. So it is a structural problem, Tina, and I absolutely agree with you. This is something that, if it was done right, I think could win elections, and certainly is good public policy. Tina, thank you for the call, and thanks for watching Free Speech. We'll be right back.
I think that putting a wife to work is a very dangerous thing.
Welcome back. Let's see here. Oh, yeah. There are a couple of other things that I wanted to talk about, just to square the circle or wrap up the rant that I was on in the last hour about the economy and how the yield curve has now flattened, which is a signal of that's the difference between how much 2-year Treasury bonds and 10-year Treasury bonds pay. That has flattened out to the point that today the Financial Times is saying this is a predictor of recession. Thomas Piketty, Keith Spencer wrote a brilliant piece about this for Salon magazine. Thomas Piketty has a new paper out. Back in 2013, he wrote the book Capital in the 21st Century. And this new paper says this, I'm quoting now from Keith Spencer, who wrote the piece about the paper, that Piketty's paper says that shifting the Democratic party platform more to the left is actually a winning electoral strategy that can help bring back disenfranchised working class voters and less educated voters who currently may not vote at all or who identify with right-wing populism. He points out that in the 50s and 60s, most of the working class and lower economic classes in the United States voted for the Democratic Party. They viewed the Democratic Party as the party of the working man and the party of the poor person, or the party of the low-income person. And, the upper-income people mostly voted for the Republican Party. And he said that over time, this is, again, quoting Keith Spencer's piece in Salon today, yet over time, those parties, Piketty explains, quote, gradually became associated with higher education voters, end quote, which he describes as creating a system of, quote, multiple elite parties, where high education elites now vote for the left and high-income, high-wealth elites still vote for the right. In other words, both sides of the spectrum, in other words, both parties, the Democratic and Republican, became parties of the elite, with no party for less educated folks or for the working class. This is what Thomas Frank points out in his most recent book, Listen Liberal, which, if you haven't read, is so worth the read. And Thomas Frank documents how the Democratic Party, pre-1990 basically, was the party of the bottom 90%. and that the decisions that were made mostly by Al Fromm and the Democratic Leadership Council, now the Third Way Group, the decision that they made was instead of being the party of the 90%, the bottom 90%, we need to be the party of the top 10%. The white-collar party, because that's the direction the economy is going. We're not going to have any industrial infrastructure left. Manufacturing is going to go overseas in this new era that Reagan brought us. And manufacturing is going to go away. The unions are dying. And so, we've got to get the white-collar voters, the guy who's making $80,000 a year working as a banker. That's got to be the Democratic Party vote. And the Democratic Party has basically pitched that for the last, 20 some odd years. And it has not worked out so well, shall we say. And back to the article here from Salon. He writes, if the Democratic Party were wise, it would see Piketty's paper as a chance to improve its electoral strategy. Indeed, the Democrats seem to be locked in a battle for their soul, a fight long presaged that erupted during the 2016 presidential primary. In one corner sits the Clintonite corporate wing of the party, who believe that the key to Democratic Party strategy is to move to the center in order to pick up moderate conservative voters who feel left behind by the Republican Party's far-right shift. This was Clinton's strategy to a T, writes Keith. In her election campaign, she bragged about her connections to Henry Kissinger and her support from billionaire Republicans like former eBay CEO Meg Whitman, while being famously dismissive of social democratic policies like single-payer health care. In the other corner, there are those who argue that the Democratic Party will win more voters if it appeals explicitly to class interests and concerns. As Steve Phillips wrote in a Times op-ed last year, quote, if Democrats had stemmed the defections of white voters to the Libertarian or Green parties, they would have won Michigan and Wisconsin. And had they also inspired African Americans in Pennsylvania, Mrs. Clinton would now be president. If progressive whites are defecting because they are uninspired by Democrats, moving further to the right will only deepen their disillusionment. Keith goes on to write, critics like Phillips argue that Clinton and her DNC followers failed to grasp that her milquetoast liberalism lacked a comprehensive ideology. There are no scapegoats, and America was already great, in Clinton's words. Those words appeared tone-deaf to the millions of Americans struggling to make ends meet, who sought a scapegoat and heard a more sensible explanation for their woes from Donald Trump. And then he wraps up by saying, though Sanders came up short in the primaries, he was vindicated in the aftermath of the general election in several ways. First, many of the Rust Belt states that Trump carried, states Hillary Clinton had banked on winning, were won by Bernie Sanders in the primary, including Michigan and Wisconsin. Second, post-election studies suggested that had Sanders been the Democratic nominee, he would have easily defeated Trump by a wide margin. Third, Sanders remains the most popular politician in the United States, despite an ongoing bile-spitting campaign orchestrated by Democratic insiders like Sally Albright, who called Sanders racist for proposing free college, or Peter Dow, who blamed Sanders for Clinton's loss. Finally, Clinton's victory was aided considerably by a corrupt party apparatus that was already in the bag for Clinton, as former interim DNC chair Donna Brazile has described in her most recent book. So, not wanting to reignite the Bernie-Hillary wars, let's move on from that. And I'm not even going to take any calls on any of that. But the reality is, and I think Thomas Piketty is absolutely right, that if the Democratic Party embraces the Progressive Caucus and the values held by the Progressive Caucus, let's take Bernie out of the equation altogether. If the Democratic Party were to embrace Franklin Roosevelt, if the Democratic Party were to embrace the policies of Lyndon Johnson outside of the Vietnam War, they would once again massively win elections.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
And isn't it ironic that it takes a French economist, Nobel winner and all that kind of stuff, but it takes a French economist to point this out to us? Back with your calls after this. Fund drive, membership drive, both, all of the above. There's only 2 days left. Well, 3 days left, I guess. Today is Wednesday, and then Thursday and Friday. So yesterday we had a great day. The matching grants, so many of you stepped up and said, yes, I'd love to see my gift doubled, that we hit our $15,000 goal and it got matched. And so now we're only, for the 3-week period, the whole 3-week period, we're only about $10,000 or $15,000 down, but we only have 3 days left and we have to hit $10,000 each one of those 3 days.
plus, make up what little is left over from yesterday's really good day. So please don't stop. We don't have the matching grants anymore, but still, it's really important. If you haven't yet called Free Speech TV to join, to participate, we need to hit these levels, or the network starts to flounder. It's just that simple. And if we can hit these goals, in fact, if we can beat these goals, which has always been my goal, and we've done it in previous years. This year is a tough one. I'm guessing a lot of people are contributing to political campaigns. We saw the same thing in the one fund drive just before the last, the elections in 2016. But Free Speech TV is important too, and in fact, Free Speech TV is supporting the campaigns, indirectly by telling the truth on the air about what's going on, indirectly supporting the campaigns of progressive candidates all across the country. So please consider a contribution to Free Speech TV now if you haven't already. 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. Tip of the hat to Mark B. from San Jose yesterday, who made a $1,000 gift. Free Speech, a number of people who've made the $1,000 gifts, which is where, come to Portland and I'll take you to lunch, have said, rather than flying to Portland and going through all the expense and hassle of that, and for an hour and a half with Tom, half hour in the studio and an hour of lunch, I'd rather just talk to him on the phone. And so Free Speech has said, okay, cool, you can have a half hour with Tom on the phone. And I did that with 2 of our $1,000 donors yesterday who preferred to talk to me on the phone instead of coming here. And it had some fascinating conversations. And I actually, one of our donors who wanted to have a phone conversation with me is like really deep in the whole thing with what's going on with vaccines and the peanut oil that they're adding to vaccines, or that they're using to somehow stimulate the immune system. And it appears that this is causing the epidemic of peanut allergies in the United States. They're using sesame oil in Israel, and now they're getting sesame allergies in Israel. It's real interesting stuff. So I got to dig into that. But in any case, I learned from these. They're great. So that's an option on those. But with a $30 gift, you get your choice of the Free Speech TV blue logo bumper sticker with the website and the logo, or the black "This is not normal" bumper sticker, or the "Elect a Clown, Expect a Circus" bumper sticker, or the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker with a $30 gift. With the $60 gift, which could be $5 a month for a year, you get a lapel pin that says "Love Conquers Hate" by the Human Rights Campaign, the Free Speech TV blue grocery bag, and the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. With a $72 gift, you get all 4 of those bumper stickers that I mentioned, the Free Speech TV logo, "This is not normal," "Elect a Clown, Expect a Circus," and Thom Hartmann University. With a $120 gift, which could be $10 a month for a year, you get my book, Unequal Protection, autographed by the author. And you get an autographed photo that Louise took of me when we were in Havana, Cuba, or Cuba, I guess, is how it's correctly. In any case, in Cuba last month with Code Pink. That was a wonderful trip, by the way, and I met some really, really great people that I hope to keep in touch with and hope to see on future trips. With a $240 gift, you get the Free Speech TV T-shirt. That's small, medium, large, or extra large. It says "Building a Just World" on the front and "Standing in Unity" on the back. You get the Free Speech with the Free Speech TV .org print on the back. You get the "Love Conquers Hate" lapel pin from the Human Rights Campaign. You get an autographed copy of my book, Unequal Protection, and you get Bonnie Siegler's book, Signs of Resistance, A Visual History of Protest in America. With a $360 gift, you also get the photo of me in Cuba, autographed. You get my autographed book, Unequal Protection. You get the book by Patrice Kahn-Kuhlers, When They Call You a Terrorist, Lives of Black Lives Matters. You get the book by Bonnie Siegler, Signs of Resistance, A Visual History of Protest in America. You get a 1-year subscription to our podcasts, and our podcasts are great. You can listen to the show anytime, anywhere, commercial, and we take all the commercials and everything. You get 4 bumper stickers, all 4 bumper stickers that we met. With a $480 gift, you get our DVD of me in Cuba, my book, Unequal Protection, When They Call You a Terrorist book, Signs of Resistance book, and the Free Speech TV T-shirt. And with $1,000, as I mentioned, come to Portland and I'll hang out with you for a bit of the afternoon, or we can have a nice telephone conversation. Those are the goodies, but the really important thing is we need to hit at least $10,000 for today. Yesterday was the first day we've done that in a big way, I think, in this fund drive. And so please call now. We need your help. We need to keep this network going. Free Speech TV is a vital part of the American media landscape. Call now. Thank you. So I just got an email from Donald Trump. Let's see if this is, it's at donaldjtrump.com. Yeah, it's Team Trump anyway. Fred, the people spoke. President Trump has officially mandated that the 2020 United States Census ask people living in America whether or not they are citizens. And then the next paragraph in italics. And the sanctuary state of California is now suing the Trump administration to stop this common sense order. Please sign the official petition to defend the president's decision to make citizenship a question in the 2020 U.S. Census. Our poll shows that Americans overwhelmingly want this question on the census. We cannot let a few Hollywood special interests speak for the rest of our country. It's time to fight back. It's time to once again reclaim our voice in America. Please sign our official petition to defend the president's decision to make citizenship a question on the 2020 U.S. Census. They are, and then of course when you click on the link, you sign your name, and then they ask you for money to pay for Don Jr.'s legal expenses. I mean, they don't tell you that's what the money's going for, but yeah, the campaign is using their money for that. But this is going to be a tough one. The Republicans have got their messaging down on this, and they're so good with these simple messages. Bill in Clifton, New Jersey. Hey, Bill, what's on your mind?
Yeah, hi. Wouldn't it be interesting if no one answered that question in the whole country?
Yeah.
About citizenship. Can I just get something quickly off my chest that's been sort of eating me up, if I may?
Yeah, sure.
The Democrats have no message. We're barreling towards the 2018 elections, and we need something. And I thought that, you had the New Deal. What about, paraphrasing Joe Biden, the big deal?
Well, they've already got this thing. It's called the Better Deal.
Oh,
right?
Okay, great.
Isn't it the Better Deal? Yeah.
Well, the only thing, the big deal will might have a connection is emotionally because of Obamacare was passed at the moment when he.
I don't know. I don't know how I feel about even using the word deal when Art of the Deal is Donald Trump's book title, but. Anyhow.
That's true.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I agree.
anyway,
the problem, Bill, is that the Democratic Party is split right now between the corporate Democrats who came into existence in the 90s, with the Clinton campaign and the DLC, and the old-fashioned, LBJ, FDR Democrats who have been around for a long, long time. And, the FDR Democrats are in the process of trying to take back the party, but they don't yet have control of all of the party apparatus. But did you call about T-bills and municipal bonds?
Right. But one last thing. Life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, those should be the bullet headings that we put under everything on the agenda.
Yeah.
Anyway, I did not, I mean, I've always been invested in municipal bonds because to me it's the most ethical form of capitalism, ethical capitalism that you can find.
I agree. They're also typically tax-free.
Right. And it went pretty well through all the economic problems of the recession and everything, but it's heavily tied to T-bills as well. And if those are gone, I mean, what's going to happen to all the townships and everything? And
are you talking about a balanced budget amendment to nuking the ability of towns to issue municipal bonds? I don't see that. I think that is exclusively to the federal deficit, or debt, rather. That's...
Right. Anyway, it looks like Trump's pursuing Andrew Jackson's economic policy at this point.
Which you would summarize as what?
That he wants to wipe out the national debt, and I guess he doesn't. He likes
you're right.
Andrew Jackson.
Yeah, Andrew Jackson was the only president in the history of the United States to take the national debt to zero, so that nobody could save money by buying T-bills. And the result of that was the longest and deepest depression in the history of the United States.
back in the
right.
late 1820s, early 1830s. I forget, when Jackson was president. And yeah, I think you're right. And
Right.
get ready. Hang on. Hold on to your seat. Bill, excellent. Thank you for the call. Frank in Springfield, Ohio. Hey, Frank, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom, I thank you for your talking about how things were when Reagan was in there and everything. I lived in West Virginia off and on for about 30-some years. West Virginia, a lot of people don't know this, that they had the best education system when they had all those coal mines, all those steel mills.
Yeah, it was a wealthy state because you had unions in the mines and in the steel mills, making sure that people got decent wages.
I had 8 kids, and 4 of them most of them in their early years got their education in West Virginia. And 4 of them, we moved here to Ohio 23 years ago. I got transferred. I mean, they all went to college. My daughter, when she got in, she was a senior when she moved here on National Honor Society. She said the courses they were taking here and as freshmen, she said, as seniors, she said they had that when they was freshmen in West Virginia. Also, the teachers down there were dedicated, and they looked after the kids. They was on computers from kindergarten on up. That's all they knew. I mean, they were computer literate.
Right.
But what happened most of all is that Trump played Reagan. They both deserve Academy Awards as far as hoodwinking these people, conning them. Oh, we're going to get these jobs back. There's those jobs where it took 1,000 men to work in those coal mines. 100 men can do it now because it's all machines.
Right.
And those jobs will never come back. Reagan said, vote for me, and steel mills will go boom. When Reagan got in, the steel mills went down. Wheeling, we used to have 20,000 steel workers. I mean, that area has been decimated. They probably got about 1,000 people in that mill now.
Wow.
All I'm saying is that the working people got to understand that the Republicans are not for you. They're for the corporate people, the Democrats. They got to keep these people, just like what you said. You gave a good course as far as how the New Deal and all those things, that's where it's at. And Trump, he talks about the military and all this stuff. I had 8 kids, 4 of them was in the military, and they know that he is not for them. And I want to tell you, the last thing I want to tell you is that it hurts me when they talk about West Virginia because I had a beautiful home there. I had a good job. The only reason why I left is because I got transferred up here in this area. But West Virginia, especially in Morgantown, Fairmont, Charleston area, those are more modern than almost any city here in Ohio.
Yeah.
But they're going back. Those good teachers who were down there are leaving and going elsewhere because they're not paying them anything.
Yeah, no, I get it. Louise and I have a dear friend who owns a home in West Virginia as well as one in Bethesda, Maryland, and we've stayed at his home in West Virginia and seen the state in ways that we hadn't before, and remarkable people, wonderful, wonderful people, and West Virginia was a great example of what you can have if you still have a manufacturing industry in your country. Frank, thank you for the call, and thanks for your sharing your history with us. It's something we all need to hear. Ronnie in Cleveland, Ohio. Hey, Ronnie, what's on your mind today?
Thanks for taking my call. I'm angry about the fact that veterans who have served in our armed services, who are not citizens of this country, are being deported.
All right, the deal that we made with them, and I don't know when this was made. I think it might have been made during the Bush administration when he was trying to jack the military up, with his occupations of Iraq and Afghanistan. But the deal that we made was if you are here illegally and you join the military, you jump to the front of the line to get a green card and ultimately U.S. citizenship. And Trump seems to be breaking that deal. Do I have this right, Ronnie?
That's
Romy,
correct.
excuse
They're
me.
being deported.
We are deporting veterans.
Veterans.
Honest to God.
And I think every vet should be calling his representative and senator and saying, stop. A law should be against that.
Yeah, what the hell is going on here? This is so wrong. America doesn't keep its promises. This is the new message. Incredible. Romy, thank you for the call, and thank you for your outrage. Hopefully it spreads well across our listenership. Dan in Villa Park, Illinois. Hey, Dan, thanks for listening to WCPT. You wanted to talk about Thomas Piketty?
Yes, you said it was interesting that a Nobel Prize winner from France had to kind of explain to us how this works. Well, de Tocqueville came here and went, oh, what is this thing called America? And wrote sort of a very seminal piece on what we were and what this whole thing was at a time when self-determination didn't exist.
Yeah.
So it's not unusual for our French friends. And I was so angry and so dismayed when they went through the whole freedom fries thing.
Mm-hmm.
We have our union because the French showed up. Now, they showed up because they wanted to pound on the British, but they showed up for us and caused us to have this country. So it's not unusual for the French to come and tweak us or give us a hand. And, that Statue of Liberty that sits in New York Harbor was a gift from the people of France to the United States for our centennial.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what I'm saying is I will take help from whatever place or person gives us as long as it's from the heart. And I think him telling us that we need to get it together, we'll take it.
Yeah, I agree. And for people who weren't listening back when I was talking about it, Thomas Piketty, this one of the world's most famous economists, he's French, has basically come out and said that if the Democratic Party wants to win elections, they need to go back to their populist roots of LBJ and FDR and the New Deal and progressive economic policies. Thank you, Dan.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Back with more of the news of the day and your calls in just a moment here on the Thom Hartmann Program. Viagra for your brain. Welcome back. Corky in Hilton, New York. Hey, Corky, thanks for watching Free Speech. What's up?
Oh, Tom, yeah, I figured out why that North Korean went to China. He's getting instructions on how to roll Trump.
Yeah, I think so too. I think they are working together to roll Trump.
Yeah.
I mean, the Chinese have some insight into this. They already did it. Xi came over to Mar-a-Lago and just completely blew Trump away. And now Trump is doing his little bluster thing, but he's doing it, in this little tiny slice. I mean, $60 billion worth of imports. We've got a $500 billion, maybe $1 trillion annual interchange with China. That's nothing. It's absolutely nothing. But it's nice window dressing.
They show the candidate while they swipe from the hotel room, and they call it a victory.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. No, I think you're absolutely right, and I think they are, and I don't think it's going to turn out well if Trump meets with Kim. Although, in principle, I'm all in favor of negotiating with our enemies. I think it's a good thing, and identifying people as people who may not have interests aligned with us, but they're not necessarily our enemies. But I just don't trust Donald Trump to have the competence, or even the people around him, particularly John Bolton, to have the competence to do this in a way that does not lead to World War III. That's my big fear. Corky, thank you for the call. It's always nice to hear from you. Earl in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Hey, Earl, thanks for watching Free Speech TV. What's on your mind today?
A couple of your callers alluded to or touched on the balanced budget amendment and what that entails.
Right.
And I'm asking you to please dwell on the importance of that. Nancy McLean in her book called Democracy in Chains emphasized in the very last chapter the extreme importance of what this means. It means the total destruction of the United States government.
Yeah, basically.
In other words, the way it starts is that they have to balance the budget. Therefore, the only thing they can take out in large chunks will be Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid, and as well as other programs that we rely on.
Yep.
That in turn reduces consumption. That in turn reduces demand. That entails more people being laid off, and it starts a vicious cycle to the downside, a cascading to the downside.
Yep, which is exactly what happened, by the way, when Andrew Jackson balanced the budget back in the 1820s.
And this will pick up momentum on the downside. Most people don't realize before it hits them in the face, we are no longer a viable country. We become a third world country, as Michael Parente said. I want to encourage people to read Michael Parente's book. His name is spelled Parent, P-A-R-E-N-T, with an I on the end of it. And he has said he has written 23 books. He was a professor at Yale University, and he said that the goal of the super rich is to make a third world country out of the United States.
Yep.
He says
they're mining this country for wealth, basically, and they're stripping the top 1% are stripping the wealth out of the middle class, and now they're even going after the lower middle class. You know, the people who are working for minimum wage. They are strip mining us.
That's right. And it's easier to strip us if we don't have the power that we have right now. In other words, if we become a poorer nation, we're more easier for picking.
Yep, I agree, and that is absolutely a strategy. Earl, thank you. Spot on, right on the nose. I know. I'm sorry, we're out of time. Thanks a lot for the call, and thanks for watching Free Speech TV there in Oklahoma. We'll be right back. It's coming up on 10 minutes before the hour. In Highland Park, Illinois. Hey, Fred, welcome to the program. What's on your mind? Thanks for listening to WCPT.
My mind is gun control. It's something that I have not heard people talking about this, or I read about it. When the British were here, they had a standing army, and the colonists hated it. And the British even kept soldiers in people's houses against their will. So the colonists, when they revolted, they had no army, so they formed militias, and they finally won. And then they adopted a constitution. But they still were very, very leery of standing armies. So in the powers that they gave to the Congress, I'm reading it right out of the Constitution, to raise and support armies, but no appropriation of money for that use shall be for a longer term than 2 years.
Right, that's Article 1, Section 8.
That they wanted to have a club there that they could reign in the army.
Yep.
But there were people who were sort of leery about the Constitution, but they went along with the understanding that there would be amendments to it. So along came the Second and Third Amendments.
Yep.
The Second Amendment speaks about a well-regulated militia
being necessary for the security of a free state.
Yeah, yeah. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, and that of course said nothing at all about anything else. Any other right or denying any right, and then also the Third Amendment provided that Let me get it out here.
Well, it says that the military basically can't force you to put soldiers in your home
without your consent.
That's right. And those, and it's interesting that you're tying the Second and Third Amendment together, Fred, which is brilliant because they really were a package.
That's right, and they were aimed at
the military
because of a fear of the Army.
Yep.
Now there are other provisions in the Constitution which authorize providing for the defense and the general welfare of the country. And for example, if they had say tried to pass a law that said that you couldn't go out and use guns for hunting, it would clearly have been unconstitutional, but not because of the Second Amendment, but because of other provisions in the Constitution. Yeah. So those who talk about the Second Amendment giving gun rights don't know what the hell they're talking about. And unfortunately, Scalia, with a 5-4 majority, comes along and finds that in the Second Amendment, it prohibits control of guns in Washington. If guns are to be prohibited in Washington, D.C., based upon that law, about the Constitution, it's not from the Second Amendment, it's from other provisions.
Yeah.
So I find that nobody seems to talk about the fact that this was limited because of a fear of the Army. It had nothing to do with the right to shoot, the right to have target practice, or anything else.
It was because the founders had seen country after country in Europe, and they knew that this was part of modern history, or part of history going back to the Greeks, and certainly the Romans, over and over and over again, standing armies ended up rising up and taking over countries, doing what's called military coups. Yeah. And they wanted to prevent that from happening in the United States, thus the Second Amendment and the Third Amendment.
Second Amendment as being a right to bear.
No, you're absolutely right, Fred. Very, very well said. Thank you for the call. And also Article 1, Section 8, where it limits funding for the Army to 2 years, so that every 2 years we would, what they envisioned was every 2 years we would have a national debate about whether we would continue to have a standing Army. Patty in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Hey, Patty, thanks for listening to AM 1350. What's on your mind?
Hey, Tom. I have a question to go on the census.
Mm-hmm.
How many guns are in the household?
That is a great question, and I would love to see that on the census.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to happen, but...
Yeah, you'd watch all of a sudden the privacy... They'd want their privacy.
Right, yeah.
By the way, I have several guns, so I'm not like a gun grabber.
No, I get it. So you could answer the question. Patty, thank you. I agree. I think that would be a great question. Thank you. Fred in Bremerton, Washington. Hey, Fred, thanks for listening to KBCS. What's on your mind?
Oh, a lot of things, Tom. I've been listening to everybody talk.
Oh, we got about a minute, so pick one, please.
I will. I'm talking about the draft.
Okay.
Apparently, the 18 to 26-year-olds are up in arms about gun control. What's to say that Trump doesn't box us into a corner doing this China-North Korea thing, and it ends up to the point where we end up having to go to war?
I think that's what that's what's on his agenda, Fred. Just like when Hitler had a political crisis in 1937, what did he do? He invaded Poland. His poll numbers were dropping. He was largely unpopular. The Anschluss, the invasion of Austria, northern Austria, or was it Czechoslovakia, whatever it was, the Anschluss, didn't work all that well, and the economy was starting to falter, and because of the Great Depression, and boom, he runs into Poland and says, "Hey, I need a war to distract people." And I see Trump putting together a war cabinet right now, and I sadly, tragically, horribly, it keeps me up at night sometimes, predict that Donald Trump is going to start World War III. I put that at a 50-50 odds right now, which is a horrible, horrible thing, but it really concerns me. Fred, thank you for the call. The one thing that you could do to help stop that would be to call your senator at 202-225-3121 and say, do not allow Mike Pompeo to become the head, to replace Rex Tillerson as Secretary of State, and do not allow this woman who is going to take over the CIA. I'm forgetting her name right off the top of my head, but anyhow, the torture lady to run the CIA. This is nuts. Anyhow, thanks so much for being with us. Don't forget, democracy requires you. Tag you're it. We'll see you tomorrow.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.
The Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by the Aiden Forecast, an investment newsletter with weekly updates of leading market indicators and a monthly deep dive into what the details of the economy and the markets mean for investors and retirees. On the web at aidenmarkets.com.
Wines have some of the highest pesticide levels in our food chain. This hour brought to you by EcoWine.com. Pesticide-free wines, organic wines, imported from France by the Organic Wine Company, EcoWine.com.
Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by Super Beets. Super Beets are sourced from non-GMO beets, and they're packed with dietary nitrates, helping to produce nitric oxide for more energy, stamina, and support for healthy blood pressure levels naturally. For more information, call 800-223-8242
or visit tomsbeets.com.